Welcome to the Inside Edge Podcasting Network and welcome to baseball season. This is our Guardians season preview for the 2026 and what we hope is going to be a baseball season that we'll see a 27, 28, and 29. We'll get into that later. Welcome everybody again to the Guardians season special. I am Rob Ruzicki. We got Eli Moon from the main event and from the from Inside Edge Primetime, Autumn Chisholm. We got also Chad Bryan from yes, we all have like 38 shows here. I think would it just be easier right now to make an intro and tell all of the projects that you are doing inside and outside of the Inside Edge Podcasting Network?
Yeah, sounds smooth. I'll start, I guess. So I'm Eli Moon. I do main event with Robert Zicki, AA Anthony Alford. I also do like a lot of other shows here on the network. I produce Real Talk with Papa Moon for my pops on Saturdays at 5 p.m. here on Inside Edge Network. I also do conversations with Eli Moon on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Prime time, Inside Edge Prime time with Chad, who's below me. What's up, dude? And so we do Monday through Thursday, 10 to 11 p.m. So doing a lot of all that, and then obviously I do work with my music collective La Hele. I got a lot of stuff going with that as well, including my album release show at the end of the month next weekend. So a lot of good stuff, and that's what's going on with me. I'll kick it over to Chad. Tell the people what's going on with you, man.
Bunch here.
It is I love it. It's very Brady Bunch. Hey, I'm Chad Bryan. I was supposed to be in a job interview. I think I put the wrong meeting key in. So I'm on this show now.
That's how we all got here.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. No, I like Eli said, I'm on Inside Edge Prime Time with him. I also I co-host the Sunday Sports Show with Ryan Mosser and TK Dandridge, and I'm on Illegal Formation on Saturdays with TK. So that's what I have going on. Autumn, tell me about you.
Yeah. Oh, it's all up to me. Wow. Okay. Yes. Hi guys. You've seen me already. Literally probably an hour ago. I of course am the host of Jersey Chasers along with my host Christy Acuity every Wednesday. Maybe some other things going on the network, but for right now, I just have Jersey Chasers. Love it. Doing well. I'm ready for this Guardian season. Rob, are you ready?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And of course, to finish this up, I am Rob Ruzicki. I co-host with Eli Moon and Anthony Alford, who I'm sure is watching somewhere, like the omnipotent program director he has become. And then also too, you can hear me on WTAM 1100, mainly on the weekends and for Guardians coverage. So yes, we are getting ready for the season along with everybody else, and I'm sure along with the town here, we are very excited for what this season is going to bring. Obviously, we had a hell of a finish to last season. 88 and 74 doesn't quite cut it when you just see it on the on the page here. 17 and a half back, epic comeback, one for the ages, one that will be talked about for generations to come, and one that will mask a first-round exit against the Detroit Tigers in the playoffs, yet coming short. Another season, no World Series, but we got a lot to look forward to, and we also have a lot of questions with this team. And also, too, it's a very weird time for Major League Baseball. We have labor strife, we have gambling stuff. Again, more on that later. And a major, a lot of free agent moves happening around, too. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun season for everybody to really partake here. And with this whole strike looming in the next 12 months or so, I think we better enjoy it, and we better enjoy this journey now.
Yeah, it seems like, for the Guardians, I was very critical, obviously, on main event and across other shows here about their finish to last year. I thought it was crazy that we were heralding as much as we were the Guardians' finish. Rob, I know me and you got into it a few times on main event because I thought it was crazy. We're talking about a team that should have won the division. They had to scrap and claw all the way to win the division, and then to get embarrassed like that in the wild card round against the Tigers. I just think, I don't know, maybe I was a little too critical, but I am realizing now, and we've talked about it on Primetime, Chad and I, about the lockout. We've talked about it on main event, the lockout. It's been a thing that is starting to loom more and more, like you said, and now I'm starting to just embrace this Guardians roster. There's some real cool names I know we'll talk about throughout the show, but you look at like Kyle Manzardo, George Valera, Gabriel Arias. You look at like some of these names. It's cool to like see, maybe Travis Bazana. You never know, just depending what the season looks like. But like, it's exciting to see, and I am embracing this Guardian season for what it is, which is maybe showing Jose Ramirez what they're planning on doing for the last little bit of his run. So that's what I'm feeling good about. As somebody who was super critical about it at the end of this past season.
Yeah, I mean, right now what they're planning on doing is adding Stuart Fairchild and Carter Keyboom for the rest of that run. Hopefully, there's more to come. But yeah, I think I'm with you on embracing the season. Don't know what next year is going to look like at all. I don't see, and we'll get into the whole labor stuff. We'll get into that, but I don't see that going well. The labor agreement runs out December 1st. So shortly after the World Series, about a month after, we'll all experience some type of heartbreak, I'm sure. But like I said, we'll talk about that later. Just going to embrace the season and try to enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I've been a Guardians fan my whole life. Anything can happen. Literally, anything can happen. I genuinely go into every season saying, you know what? If this is our year, it's our year. If not, oh well.
Well, and I think we all kind of mentioned it in our own way here, and I think we when we were getting ready for the show here, we were planning on maybe saving it for later, but it is the elephant in the room. It is the number one off-season storyline. We could talk free agency, we could talk the new ball strike challenge rule, but really this is the one story that matters, and let's just get into it now. I guess we have a pending labor stoppage happening at the end of the season. For those of you who haven't been paying attention to the off-season trackings of Major League Baseball, the collective bargaining agreement will expire December 1st of this year. So they'll play the World Series, have a couple of weeks, and then there'll be some uncertainty. And from what most people say close to the situation, that it will happen. They will have a work stoppage, either a strike or a lockout. Bet on a lockout, and it will move into the winter, and it will possibly move into spring training and the regular season. So for the first time since 1994, we could be looking at canceled baseball games due to a labor stoppage. And I guess this is the question to the group. How much does that influence the way that you look at this season, and really just you being a fan in general? Is that distracting to you? Does it matter, or is it a huge deal?
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily like the biggest deal for this season. I think as the season goes on, I think by like July or August, and maybe it'll start like hitting fans and maybe me, I guess, as well, a little bit faster, or that, wow, this is going to be possibly the last season for a year, maybe two or whatever, without baseball. But right now, what I'm excited about is just trying to get ready about the young prospects, which just seems to be the Guardians' way. It's been the Guardians' way since I can remember, of the young prospects that could guide this team. The lockout is something that I think is going to be interesting to take a look at when we get near the World Series and seeing how players are reacting, because there'll be more buzz as the season goes on. I mean, this will become a story that gets talked about in locker rooms and asked about probably after games, whatever. And I think that'll become more of a buzz by summertime, Rob. But right now, I'm trying to embrace the Guardians. You know me, they got to go win the World Series or it doesn't matter. So I really want to just embrace what we have right now, and then later on, I guess we'll worry about it. But I will say this about the lockout, and I'm curious to hear what Chad has to say about it. But I think with the lockout, I think whatever they do, I think they got to hold the owners accountable. I know they're talking about going to a lockout, but one of the big things is because of the salary cap discussion. And I think they got to hold owners accountable. If they're going to talk about, how much can players make or this or that, then I think that there needs to be a salary floor as well. We've talked about it on Main Event. We've talked about it on a lot of shows, all of us at some point. There needs to be some salary floor. And they can't let owners that aren't paying any money get out of not paying, because this is kind of part of the reason we're here, Chad. That's kind of part of the reason.
Yeah. As far as the lockout goes, I think let's be honest. The worse your team is, the sooner it's going to hit you, right? I mean, everybody has something to look forward to on opening day. Everybody starts in first place, but a lot of teams, you're going to hit a 4-14 stretch or whatever to start the season, or the White Sox look like they're going to be pretty bad. Some teams look really, really bad, to be honest with you. And the worse you start, the sooner it's going to hit you. You start to realize, like, okay, we have no shot this year, right? There's no chance to get in the playoffs. Forget the World Series; it's over. Now, what do I have to think about? Think about December 1st, right? I got to watch somebody else go win the World Series, whatever. And it's December 1st, and the season's over. And then there is no season. There is no 2027 season. So, yeah, I think you embrace it as long as you can until your team is, inevitably kind of pushed out of contention. I mean, you may not be mathematically eliminated, but you kind of see the end coming, right? Yeah, the salary floor, Eli, I think is a great idea. If there's going to be a salary cap, there has to be a minimum amount that you have to put in as an owner, right? Because right now we know that you could instill a salary cap and there'd be 4, 5, 6 teams in the league that would never even come near it, right? I mean, never, ever even maybe get halfway to it. The Dodgers might be in trouble. I don't know what they would do with that, but I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what a salary cap would even look like. Is it a luxury tax situation? Is it a hard salary cap? Is it like the NFL? You got to start jettisoning off
NBA apron.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's going to be the one of the, I think, discussions that really drags on the work stoppage that's appears imminent at this point. Autumn, I don't know. I mean, do you have anything to? Please tell me something positive, I guess. I'm starting to express myself here.
Oh, look, I honestly, the last time this happened, I'm sorry, Rob, I have to say this. I wasn't even born yet, so.
I understand.
I love that she thinks
so sorry.
That's my favorite part of it.
I'm so sorry, Rob.
You're fine. All is well. I was 12. I was 12.
Yeah, I wasn't even born yet, but honestly, I've seen a couple lockouts, work stoppages. Major League Baseball has a really big problem. Their biggest problem, of course, is the fact that owners don't want to pay people money. And then the ones that do want to pay, they're getting huge backlash for giving out these huge contracts. And the longer things like fester, the worse it's going to get. Like we already saw a few years ago how bad it got with the first CBA negotiations and players not really enjoying that. So you have that. And then of course you had, we were talking about it before the show, you have the president of the MLB Players Association, the union, being ousted. That definitely doesn't help because I know for a fact that they have the strongest union in sports. Like a union that got, how many Houston Astros was it? Like 6 of them off to where they never even got punished. So you have the strongest union, you losing their president, and now you're going into a season where even if I'm not even going to say the Guardians, I'm just going to say just like even if you're a team that's like maybe we go all the way with the pieces we got, it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. You're going to have fans not happy. You're going to have players not happy. You're going to have wild contracts like we always do. I think the perfect scenario is probably what the NFL does.
Okay.
Because they can constantly keep it competitive. You don't have these crazy contracts. Even if you do have these crazy contracts, I mean, we see with the Browns, like look at their nuts contract. You can eventually get out of it, but they need something. I genuinely, I don't like the contracts. I think they're stupid. I think the way Major League Baseball is structured is incredibly redundant. But Rob, what do you think?
Well, they're going to be looking at a bunch of things. Obviously the salary cap is tantamount, and yes, with any negotiations, with any, the NFL has a salary floor. They just don't talk about it because it's never really an issue. Same with the NHL, same with the NBA. So that will kind of take care of itself. The other thing they're going to be looking at too is these 7 years of arbitration, these 7 years of team control that you see these small market teams, Guardians included, take advantage of pretty much all the time. When you start talking about a prospect debuting in June or July, is so they can get more service time on, and they're going to definitely look at that. The other thing too, along that line that they have to look at is, yes, there is a nice chunk of players that are getting paid, $300 million for 10 years, whatever it's going to be. What Kyle Tucker, $60 million for 4 years. Those kind of contracts. But then you also have that bottom of the league of, the younger players, the pre-arbitration players. There's no middle class. There's no guy, Stephen Kwan, he's going to be facing that in a couple of years when he hits free agency where, okay, yeah, for $3 million a year, you were a hell of a deal, but who's going to want to spend $15 million on a guy who's going to get you 12 home runs? So that's going to be what they're going to have to look at too. There's, and the union right now, is at the absolute worst it's ever really been. Autumn, you're right. They were the most powerful union, not just in sports, but probably in unions, period. But this scandal has really weakened them. Tony Clark obviously leaving. They have named an interim director. They're going to figure out what they're going to do right before the biggest negotiations they'll ever have. And then the other thing that we're not talking about too is that they're also, and the NFLPA is in this too. They're a little, they're kind of under federal indictment right now or investigation. There are some feds looking around from the DOJ, seeing it's all kind of stems from a company that they've like a youth sports company that they put together that is suddenly worth $2.3 billion. So they're looking into that. So yeah, the union is not where it used to be. The owners are not where they used to be. Bud Selig, the old commissioner, before you were born, Autumn. One thing he liked.
I experienced Bud.
You were born. One thing he did like was having unanimous votes. He liked to have 28-0, 30-0 when it came down to any of these issues. Rob Manfred's a little different. He, as long as he gets his 24, as long as he gets his 2/3, he doesn't give a shit. So you are seeing some fractured groups in the owners. Like I think the Orioles owner came out for a salary cap. The Rockies owner came out for a salary cap. That's never really been done before. So the owners are going to have to hold, ranks themselves to keep that cap idea going. And the players, you mentioned it too. This is Autumn, you mentioned this was a huge issue. Like this was the reason why Bryce Harper was screaming at Rob Manfred in a locker room during the All-Star break. The players don't want a cap. So this is a rock and a hard place. And I think the only people who are truly going to lose are going to be the fans. And because we're normally the only people that kind of lose. By the way, on that note, keep in mind, Banana Ball just added 4 extra teams, and they are now touring the country with a half dozen different squads. So I think they're getting ready for a summer of no baseball too coming up next year. So yeah, it's going to be a thing, but I think part of being a Guardians fan is separating the business of baseball, which is very frustrating for us, and the actual on-field deal. I can be very upset with the front office for not spending, but I can be proud of the players for overachieving. And I think this is where we're getting into with spring training of, all right, these are our guys. We got to root for them no matter what. There's going to be some fun things to happen. And we just got to put blinders on here and there when it comes down to, the massive labor negotiations and, the other big black eye that baseball is suffering that we're in the middle of too. And I guess while we're talking about big purple elephants in the room, the Guardians have a closer now that is no longer welcome in Major League Baseball, Emmanuel Clase. And this is the other story that we're following too off the field that's going to be a distraction. I guess it's kind of the same question. Is Emmanuel Clase's pitch rigging investigation going to really hamper your enjoyment too of this 2026 season?
No, I don't know if it'll hamper my my excitement or enjoyment of the Guardian season, Rob. But I think it'll be interesting to see how this investigation continues to unfold. We've talked about our main event. What is this going to look like if this turns into more Guardians roster members or whatever have you? And I think that at that point, then it becomes maybe it's wrecking the enjoyment because now it's a bigger story. But Emmanuel Clase obviously now welcome back for the Guardians, not really welcome back to any MLB facility right now. So we've talked about, yes, he is tied with the Guardians. Yeah, he is tied with the Guardians name, but I think this is a bigger thing for Cade Smith, and I think that's what it comes down to. Is I think that's going to be one of the fun storylines. And I know we're going to talk about a bunch of storylines like throughout the show, but seeing Cade Smith, and he stepped up pretty well as the closer last year, but having the first full season to be the closer of this Guardians team, I think that's going to be really fun to see. So maybe this is kind of in a way for Guardians fans to kind of get behind a new closer, and that's kind of the story of Guardians. At least for me, everybody's rocked with the closer. You got to have a good closer, and Clase was that guy until he wasn't, and I think it'll be interesting to see what Cade Smith can do with a full season of work. So.
Yeah, Cade Smith has electric stuff, and I think more so for fans. I don't think it'll be such a distraction as a fan watching. I mean, it might make you think twice about where you spend your money. It's harder to watch baseball, right, than it is maybe any other professional sport. You can't just sit back on any given night and watch the highlights roll across Twitter like you can with the NFL or the NBA or any other sport. Really, baseball is very careful about how they distribute their players. And I think they have to do a better job. They've done this to themselves. The situations that they're in, all of this is a little bit self-inflicted in some way, I think. The careful marketing of play, I don't even know if I would call it careful. It's just they don't really care to market their players, right? It's almost like Rob Manfred has this too big to fail mentality when it comes to running Major League Baseball. And that only gets it for so long. I mean, you've really got to have someone who sometimes it feels like he doesn't care about the game, right? It just feels like it's so disingenuous. Everything that he says, everything that he does is, it's to maximize profit. A little bit shorter games. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's to pull fans in, but I don't know. Like I said, a lot of this is self-inflicted. I'm not even sure the
gambling for sure is.
Gambling for sure. Making everything so accessible. And I mean, you see how many, all the green screen ads and all the ads. You go to a game and it's everywhere. I mean, it's literally, you're completely inundated with it, and you expect the players not to fall victim to it. I don't know. I don't know. I think the one thing that no one's talking about with the Emmanuel Clase thing is, I've brought this up before on shows. What if Clase isn't a willing participant in this? Like what if we've seen that with the whole NBA betting scandal? I mean, we've seen evidence of the mafia that they're involved, right, at some level. What if the right people with the right reach came to Emmanuel Clase and said, "Hey, this is what you're doing, and you're going to make 20 grand doing it because we're making all the money. We don't care about you. If you get caught, you're going down with the ship. We don't care about that. And if you don't do it the right way, we know where your family is. We know where they stay." Everyone has glazed over that. I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but just keep.
Well, I'm sure, and I'm sure if that is the case, that will come out. I believe it's the 5th of next month. March 5th is going to be the day the trial starts.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that any and every defense that he has will be thrown out there. So yeah, I'm going to be curious to see the answer to that, because if he's a victim in this, all of a sudden this changes a little bit.
For sure, a lot. And then I think that at that point, I think the investigation, the scope becomes even wider, and it becomes more of a distraction in the clubhouse, right? Not necessarily to fans, but I mean, how many players are going to get questioned about this? I mean, just on the Guardians alone, I mean, they're probably going to go through that entire clubhouse. Yeah. Everybody's going to get questioned. I mean, anybody with any proximity to the pitching staff, to the catchers, anything like you guys said on main event, everybody's going to get talked to.
That's what I was going to say is this is where the lack of turnover for the Guardians kind of hurts, because I think 90% of the people who have caught Emmanuel Clase in his entire career in town are still on the roster. David Fry, Hedgie, and Bo Naylor. So, yeah, I'm sure because at some point, like I had that question as a talk show host was, did the catchers kind of pick up on the fact that the first pitch of every inning sucked?
Yeah.
I don't know. And
I mean, it's one thing, guys come out of the bullpen a little amped up, right? Sometimes, I mean, maybe you look the other way, you don't really notice it until things come out. But yeah, I think this could be a huge mess, not just for the Guardians, but for Major League Baseball, and just the likability of MLB is just so low anyway. Depending on what we find out with the investigation, it could be a lot lower. Forget the work stoppage; it's terrible timing. All this is just, I mean, it's piling up on them, and it's not great.
Yeah, I have some thoughts. I'm not even gonna mince words. This is a man who was baseball's best closer for like 2 years, and then all of a sudden in the playoffs he just sucked. That's like, and it was a specific series. It wasn't like it was like a slow decline. It was a specific series that all of a sudden he just started throwing like crazy pitches, and it was almost like he was tipping them. I'm gonna just say this. Major League Baseball for years has shown that they don't care about their players. For years. There is no way that you go from the number one sport in the country to last on the totem pole without caring. And we saw Bud Selig try with the whole, if you win the All-Star game, you get home field advantage. Well, people hated that because it's like it gave certain teams an unfair shake. And now they're not even trying. They're not even trying. Like, I know I talked about it on my show tonight about like the All-Star game in NBA. and how it's terrible. But I'm like, at least they're trying. At least they're trying to like mix it up and like do different things. Major League Baseball's not even trying. And then with this whole like gambling stuff, it's like when I knew it was going to be bad when the FanDuel network came along. When that FanDuel network came along and they bought all those Bally stations, I'm like, that's all automatically it's a conflict of interest because you have FanDuel being a direct partner with the leagues, and now you're buying all these networks and you're not even a direct partner. You're just controlling the narrative now. You're controlling what goes out. You're controlling like the bets and everything. So I knew it would be a player that would do something like this. I mean, Pete Rose did it, and he suffered the consequences until his death.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think it would be somebody in Cleveland, and I definitely didn't think it would be this bad to where we can all tell when he was doing it. You could probably go back and look at the games of when he was like,
oh yeah, you can
tipping
find
these pitches. Oh yeah, you can. And that whole CS series, I was like, what happened? Like you were the most reliable pitcher. You were literally up for a Cy Young, and then you just could not pitch.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that's happened. At that rate, you could look at Jose Mesa and kind of say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at any reliever in the playoffs or any player. I mean, even take into account. And again, we're not throwing out any direct accusations, but you see how that Philadelphia Philly season ended with the pitcher throwing the ball over home plate. But and in a lot of cases, there genuinely are, hey, it's a really pressurized moment, and you screw up, So, but what all this gambling stuff now is leaving the door open to impropriety anytime, and this is not a new thing in baseball. This goes all the way back to 1877 and Jim Devlin. I remember it well. I was in second grade. Louisville Grays. So, I mean, this has been happening for about, 150 years or so.
Yeah. I mean, you have the Black Sox scandal. Like,
but,
yeah.
But that goes, Autumn, to your point of the more labor's messed with, the more they're going to screw up. I don't know if you realize this. They were called the Black Sox before the scandal. And the reason for that was the owner of the team, Charlie Comiskey, who's revered now still, he refused to wash the to pay for the uniforms to get washed, and wanted the players to take it out of their own pocket. Basically send it to the dry cleaner like you would your own suit or whatever. And in protest, the players didn't wash their uniforms, so the White Sox became black. That very 1919 season, he pulled his ace with about 2 weeks to go in the season because if he got to 30 wins, he was going to get a bonus, and Charlie already won the pennant. He wasn't going to pay his player any more money. So, yeah, this happens a lot. You have a union now that doesn't really protect its players as much. Check out Scott Boras and his influence in the union. He's a super agent in baseball. And, yes, he makes sure, when the union stuff is talked about, that the top 10% are taken care of. Yep. And that middle class that I was just talking about, they're the ones that are getting screwed. So you have a union that works, that really kind of keeps an eye on the star players and nobody else. And yeah, we're just in a bad spot. And the one thing the gambling companies will say, and I do agree with this, is that this partnership has let them at least share their information with baseball. You can at least see these irregularities. You can at least see this stuff happening because, again, going back to the whole 150 years of gambling, how many pitches were tanked in 1981? How many pitches were tanked in 1942? They didn't know about it because they weren't communicating, but I have a feeling that this is a problem that's always has existed. We're just finding it out now. We're just seeing the evidence of it now. And this is this Clase situation is the absolute worst case situation for baseball. This is not an internal investigation that they're going to release and let their fans know what they want us to know. This is a federal investigation. The DOJ does not give two shits about baseball's PR, about their schedule, about their condition at all. If they have information that they want the public to know, they will let the public know. And baseball is not going to have any control over it. And yeah, a lot of these unsightly little details about who knew what and when that baseball would probably just sweep underneath the rug are going to be talked about in open court. So this is the absolute worst case scenario for baseball.
Yeah, Yeah,
No,
no,
you
and
go.
oh, you're good. Yeah, but you brought up a good point, Autumn. And I think that's like why our generation like has a tough time falling in love with baseball. Like Papa Moon's favorite sport is baseball. Like he's told me before, he's said he would trade 100 NBA championships and Super Bowls for one World Series. Probably not so much, but like I do love the Guardians, but it's tough to like fall in love with baseball, and it's because we're literally one of the first topics we're having a discussion about is the lockout and the gambling situation, and this is never it seems to be about like, hey, here's what this player is doing on the field and like what this team is doing, and these are some teams that are moving, and I think other leagues do a good job of marketing that a lot more. In the NFL that the Jacksonville Jaguars are on a winning streak, and you should keep an eye on them going into the playoffs. About these teams. You look across the leagues, and the MLB does everything but focus on the field. And I think that's why it's tough for our generation to get involved.
Well, the NBA does that too. I mean, NBA Twitter and free agency and trade deadline are almost more interesting than the regular season.
Yeah,
to a point, but at least it's being discussed about. I guess there isn't even any movement, I'm saying, towards the actual game sometimes, Rob. It seems like it's more so about the stuff outside of it, the gambling, the other stuff outside of it. And at least that's just me. But I can tell you that's how a lot of people in my generation feel. That's why, unless you're going to a baseball game, there's a lot of people my age that aren't sitting down and watching a full series, a 3-4 game series anymore. And I mean, I was a teenager growing up watching a 7 to 10 game stretch of Guardians baseball, and not worrying about like going anywhere else. And I think it's changed for a lot of people because of all the extra noise outside the game and not to focus on the actual game itself.
Well,
yeah,
and there's
think about the culture.
faster.
Yeah, but also think about the culture around like NBA. Like you mentioned NBA Twitter, right? NBA Twitter is its own thing. The NFL, it's its own thing. Like we saw the Super Bowl. That's a whole spectacle. That was a whole week
Right.
of sponsorship and spectacle, and they still came out on top. The NBA, like I said, All-Star game, terrible, boring. It was awful. But they create a spectacle, and they kind of give you the false sense of hope that maybe, just maybe, like this will get better. Baseball doesn't do that. There's no culture around baseball at the moment for you to like want to invest in these players and want to invest in these teams, because it's like, well, I know the Dodgers care, but what about the Guardians? It seems like they don't care, but the Dodgers are going out every year and they care. But this team's going out every year and they care. And it's so disappointing, because I too, Eli, was like that. I would sit at home, I would watch a full 10 game stretch of the Guardians and be excited about, when the next time I could go to a game. And it's been like, I think it's been I went last year. And before that, it was like 6 years before I had went to a game, because it was that bad.
Well,
Yeah.
and baseball is a unique sport right now because, take Kansas City, the Royals, that small market. And we all talk about the lack of payroll, the lack of, they can't get free agents either.
Mm-hmm.
We never questioned for 1 second that Patrick Mahomes was going to stay in that city in a different league. Yeah. Baseball is the only sport out there that your star player can get too good for your team. Yeah. And we see it happen all the time. We talk about Stephen Kwan a little bit. Does he go to the Yankees or Dodgers or Cubs or, what's going on? And it's always the same list of 3 or 4 teams.
Yeah.
So if you are in Cleveland,
yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine. No, but if you are in Cleveland or if you are in Pittsburgh or Kansas City or, Colorado, Arizona, even though they were in the World Series a couple of years ago, you're really just, you're almost playing minor league ball.
Yeah.
And, you've kind of seen that too with the way that the playoff races have shaken out the last couple of years. If the Guardians were in the AL East and were in the Coastal or in the West and had to deal with any of those powerhouse teams out there, that 17 game comeback doesn't happen. No. We are in the playoffs a lot because we're in that heartland division in the Central with all the other small market teams. Yeah. And we are the best of the little guys in that division. And it kills morale for any team to know that, like when the Guardians got into the playoffs last year, I knew that we needed a miracle to happen for the Guardians to go to the World Series. You don't kind of feel like that before the season even starts with all the other sports. There is a little bit more hope league wide in a lot of these other sports, and baseball, it would really, really help them out to fix that, because unless you're a Yankee fan, unless you're a Dodger fan, unless you're a Met fan, Chad, you're not really, or Blue Jays now, I guess, you're not really psyched for this upcoming season the way you would be for other sports.
Yeah, and I'm a Braves fan, and my team spends a little bit of money, but they still don't spend money like the five. And the Blue Jays do a little bit, but it's the five teams. It's the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees, it's the Cubs, it's the Red Sox. That's it. And half the time the Red Sox won't even make a run because
and Cubs, for that matter, like
Well,
those
yeah.
are the ones that are kind of iffy at that point.
yeah, and that's it. I mean, and like I said, I think the Braves at one point had the 7th or 8th highest payroll in baseball, and obviously that helps. I mean, they won a World Series in 2021. But even that was only after a complete outfield retooling. I mean, it felt like they were. I don't know why they were buyers that year, but they felt like they were close enough within striking distance. The division was bad enough. Lucky enough, even in a division with the Phillies and Mets. I mean, the division was bad enough that year that they could make a run. And like you said, I mean, gosh, man, thank goodness for geography, because man, if the Guardians, like you said, man, if they were out east or out west, either way, man, they'd be in big trouble, big trouble. But instead, they're right there in that little pocket of teams that can't afford any continuity. But even that, you see the Tigers going out, and they signed Framber Valdez, and maybe that's to an extent a little bit because their teams are kind of like pausing spending money because of the looming work stoppage. But whatever, now the Tigers have gotten that much better. I mean, they have Skubal and Valdez at the top. They've got Justin Verlander back, who was pretty good at the end of the. I mean, the Tigers are spending money like a very large market city right now, and it makes you wonder what really is in store for the Guardians this season.
Yeah, and we will actually get into that. And actually, I forget who brought up the point. I think it was Moon talking about how we start getting caught up in the minutia of the business of baseball and everything going off the field. We don't talk about anybody who's actually running around on the diamond. And we're 37 minutes into this show, and we really haven't done that yet. I think that kind of proves his point pretty well. But we will do that after this break here. We will get into this 2026 team again. 88-74 last year. They won the division. Are they going to be able to do it again? What players are the most important in that run? And what players are poised for the most for a big breakout year this year? Who's feeling the most pressure? We're going to get into all that kind of stuff coming into the next break here on the Guardians preview show. Yes, the 2026 season is here. Spring training starts 3 o'clock here locally in Cleveland. You can hear that on WTAM 1100. The dulcet tones of Tom Hamilton and Jim Rosenhaus. It's 60 degrees outside. We are getting very, very close to spring, folks, and I couldn't be happier. And I'm sure Eli, Chad, Autumn, you are with me on that one for sure.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's go to break here. Again, we got Autumn Chisholm, we got Chad Bryan, we got Eli Moon. I am Rob Rozicki, and this is the 2026 preview special on the Inside Edge Podcasting Network. And we'll see you soon.
I have to leave.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Inside Edge Network. Eli Moon, Robert Zicki, Autumn, and Chad Ryan. We are back. If you saw during the break, Alley Rose Fragrance is the newest sponsor of the Inside Edge Network. 20% off your entire order. If you're like Chad, you saw him prime time yesterday. He got his entire candle order, multiple scents in. 20% off the entire order. So just quick math there. If you're buying 5 candles, you get $20 off. You can be like Chad and get like $20 off your entire order. Inside Edge 20 is the code. Capital I, capital E, Inside Edge 20, all one word. And Chad, I know usually this is where I send it to you to talk about all the good stuff about Alley Rose Fragrances, and then we'll send it back to Rob with Guardians Talk.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite thing is all natural ingredients. They're vegan and cruelty free. Again, made here in the U.S. They're handmade right in Charlotte, North Carolina. Words are really hard tonight for some reason, but these candles are not hard. They smell so.
I hear you.
I mean, guys, just smell that. Can you guys?
Wow.
Get a whiff? Yeah, right?
Your internet must be a whole lot better than mine.
It's television. It's fine. That's spiced apple, though. Yeah, and I've got lavender lullaby. I'm looking at it over here. My daughter is still kind of just slowly deciding which one I'm allowed to burn. She's making that decision for me because in my house, the kids run the show, so it's fine. But yeah, like I said, vegan, all natural ingredients, not the some of the nasty chemicals that go into the bigger company candles. You're not going to find those. Much cleaner burn, longer burn time. I'm super excited with the way that they look. Again, I have not been allowed to burn one yet. My daughter is still running the show, but I'm super excited. They smell amazing. They smell so clean, and they really smell natural. I mean, the ingredients honestly smell cleaner. So I'm excited. I'm really excited. I'm super excited about it.
Yep.
Hey, and unlike the candles you find at Bed Bath & Beyond, the owner of this company is not on the Epstein list. So
yes.
Good job there.
That is a huge positive. Huge positive.
Yeah, that is a very big deal, I think. That's something I look for nowadays.
Yes.
But yes, Inside Edge 20 is the promo code. Alley Rose Fragrances, check them out. Again, yeah, they do a lot of good work, all natural stuff. No Epstein list, so you got everything going for you right then and there. But this is the Inside Edge 2026 Guardians preview special. We got Autumn, we got Chad Bryan, we got Eli Moon. I am Rob Rozicki. And after we have spent a good half hour talking about all the off-field stuff, do we actually want to sit here and talk some ball and see how this team is going to fare in this fine baseball season of ours?
Yeah, I think that sounds.
Sorry, might as well, right?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good plan here. We're going to be here all the way to midnight. We should talk about something relevant, actually pertaining to this team.
Yeah.
So, let's start out here. We were all kind of, we heard a little bit what Voter was saying in his media gaggles the last couple of days for guys that he's expecting to break out in this 2026 season, guys that with a little bit of pressure on them and that need to contribute to this team. And I think we can all kind of agree that the first one in this whole schmaz is hopefully the full-time first baseman of this team. 15 pounds heavier, Kyle Manzardo. He is going to need a big year and a big step forward if this team wants to vie for a postseason spot again.
Yeah, but, one thing is for certain with Manzardo, Rob, he's got a lot of pop in the bat, 27 home runs last year. So he definitely can come up in the big moments in terms of like when you need a quick score, or need two brought in, by way of the long ball. He can do that. The one thing we're going to keep an eye on is he obviously batted .234 last year, and we talked about it before we even got on the air tonight, that the Guardians, you look at a lot of these batting averages, they're pretty abysmal, and like the real end of the season helped out a lot of these batting averages. But with Manzardo, I think we're going to just want to look for the consistency, 70 RBIs last year. So really it's just about, can he turn that into everyday consistency? Can we see an uptick in home runs? Maybe that leads to, 20 more RBIs, close to 100 RBI guy for Manzardo. And can the average get closer to like 260, 270? I'm not asking you to bat 300, but 260, 270 out of your first baseman, I think isn't asking a crazy a lot average-wise. What do you think, Chad?
Well, Rob, first of all, you said he 15 pounds heavier. He and I have that in common since last summer. We're both it might be 15 different pounds, but that's okay.
Yeah, I think it might be a different kind of 15 pounds for
a totally different kind.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not here to split hairs. That's neither here nor there. I think Eli said it. I think the consistency is what you're looking for. I mean, 27 home runs from him last year. Ideally, as a corner infielder, you'd like to see him be around that 30 to 35 home run mark. And, maybe 100 RBIs. There aren't a whole lot of 100 RBI guys in this lineup right now. Not a ton of scoring opportunities. That's the one knock. So yeah, they were I think 28th in runs scored last year. So somebody's going to have to pick it up somewhere. Jose Ramirez literally cannot do it all by himself, although he's tried and been pretty successful with it, to be honest with you. But yeah, they'll need some steps forward from some of that supporting cast, and I think Manzardo is definitely one of those guys, right, Autumn?
Yeah, I think Manzardo could be the second bat that the team needs. We all know Jose is the first. We all know Jose has been consistent. They need somebody else. It can't just be Manzardo. They also need to have Stephen Kwan step up a little bit more. Look, I know that the Guardians are what they are. Their hitting has been an Achilles heel for long before this iteration. But they need one of those outfielders to step up. That's always what I say. An outfielder has to step up. We've seen it time and time again. I think the last outfielder I can remember, and I'm about to really throw it back here, that was a power hitter that could hit for average and that got you a lot of runs was probably Grady Sizemore. And
I knew you were going to say Grady Sizemore.
That's
knew
amazing.
It. That's amazing.
You got what? You had what? 3 All-Star seasons,
Yep.
2 seasons of 30 for 30, and like you need something like that. At least 2. You gotta have at least 2. So we need somebody.
And they tried for that, Autumn. They tried for that. With Michael Bourne, I feel like and the Guardians. I think Rob. We talked about it. Yeah, we talked about it in the first segment. They're just scared of, I think, falling flat on their face again. Nick Swisher, Michael Bourne, like a lot of. I mean, the Edwin Encarnacion was a good one, but like I think to your point, Autumn, Grady Sizemore is the last real notable outfielder we could think of that was worth a damn. In the outfield, both offensively and defensively. And Rob, I think that's something to keep an eye on too. Is like the outfield of this team, because Manzardo, like I said, the consistency needs to improve, but we know what he can bring offensively. He's got a lot of pop in his bat, but outfielder-wise, Stephen Kwan, the talk with Stephen Kwan, too, is he even going to be here this entire season? I know that can be another discussion another time, but what do you make of this outfield situation?
Well, the Kwan stuff, remember, before the Clase story broke around the trade deadline last year, that was good. That was, he was up for, a possible trade even as early as last season. So, you have to keep an eye on that. To Manzardo real quick. What I'll be looking for out of him is a few things. First off, and I know it has nothing to do with the plate, you got to play defense. You were a below-average defensive first baseman last year, which first base, let's face it, is not center field or shortstop. You at least need a league average first baseman. It's really the only step back that Manzardo, or anybody at first base is taking from Carlos Santana. Love him or hate him, he was a Gold Glove first baseman. So you need to play defense. You need to be able to be out there for 140 games at first. You need to be able to lock down that spot. The other thing, too, what was it? 48 walks in about 530 at-bats. That has to go up. I'm okay with a 230 average if that on-base percentage spikes a little bit with getting on base that way, because that's why all these RBI numbers suck, is that nobody got on base. So if you can get on base and do what you need to do, you'll be something that Jose Ramirez has been looking for since they traded Josh Naylor, and that is a protector. You need to protect Jose Ramirez in that lineup. He's got to be able to see good pitches. And, if it's Kwan or anybody else in this outfield, if it's Nolan Jones, I don't know if we're all really excited about that one. If it's George Valera, Chase DeLauder is going to be getting a look out, or the new kid out in center, we're going to be looking at him too.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some options out there. David Fry is going to be in the mix out there too. Remember, he's going to be back and ready to go. He might be a little bit of a solution if he can lock down right field and be that all-star bat that we saw a year and a half ago in the first half of 2024. If he can do that, then okay. But they're going to need some help with that outfield. And I don't think it's going to be Nolan Jones. I don't think it's going to be George Valera even. I think, they're going to be looking for, if it's Fry, if it's going to be Kwani to step up, somebody there to make that outfield worthwhile, because offensively, especially if you take Stephen Kwan out of the situation, even if you keep him in it, the Guardians' power numbers for their outfield, some of the worst in baseball, some of the worst offensive numbers, period. in baseball. In left field, right field, they have to produce for you. And they got to find somebody. My bet right now is going to be David Fry. We'll see what happens, but yes, that outfield has to change for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you hope that it's David Fry if he comes along, or you mentioned Chase DeLauder, you mentioned George Valera, you mentioned these guys that top prospects, for the Guardians, guys that came up through the ranks and were looked at like to be guys they can count on and everyday consistency. And we'll see with DeLauder, we'll see with Valera, but yeah, it just seems like these are the conversations we have. And why we have these conversations about why the Guardians don't spend in the offseason. It's so frustrating because now we're counting on Chase DeLauder and George Valera, who are both, younger than 26 years old, to be, 280, 290 hitters. And I get it, they were these top prospects, but that's asking a lot out of two guys that really are going to be stepping into a full season of like really more reps, more everyday play. I think that's asking a lot. That's why, like, signing guys in the offseason, even just like a veteran bat, would have been huge. I mean, we were talking about, moving around guys, even on main event. Like, what if you could bring in a Kyle Schwarber and put him in the outfield? Like, and obviously the Guardians are never going to entertain that, but this is why those types of moves are so big, Rob, because now you're looking at outfield with Stephen Kwan, and we got our fingers crossed for DeLauder and Valera and for David Fry, and it's worrisome, especially if, Stephen Kwan isn't a Guardian at the end of the year. Then who are we putting in left field if David Fry doesn't work out? It's just a lot can change in a few months, and that's what's worrisome to me, at least.
Yeah, I think they look at David Fry as more of a DH, to be honest with you. And thinking about a guy like Kyle Schwarber, you bring Schwarber in, and he can be a defensive liability in left field, and then you got to weigh it out. I mean, is his run production worth the loss in defensive side? I don't know. It's hard to because I honestly see him as more of a DH as well. Obviously, he's not a great defender. Not terrible. I mean, but he's just not good. It's like the knock on Marcell Ozuna when he came to Atlanta. They put him out in left field and they said, Ozuna had that Gold Glove year, and I thought,
we lost Jed. Oh,
Gold Glove. I don't fully understand that. But that's how I look at David Fry. Even like if you bring in Kyle Schwarber, and let me ask you this: if Travis Bazzana ends up being the big bat that everybody hopes, obviously huge college career, only 1 year in the minors, kind of riddled with weird injuries, nagging injuries, or whatever. But if he ends up showing the pop and just that offensive ability, he's played some outfield. Is there any chance they would move him to left field? Or I don't know if he has the arm to play in right field. I'm not really sure. As a second baseman, but just to get some kind of pop out of a corner outfielder, would you consider moving Bazzana out to left? With
Bazzana, yeah, and I think there was some talk about him moving around, when he was drafted. But I'll take this back to my Pirates fandom back in the late '90s and early aughts with Jason Kendall. They tried to do the same thing with him and move him back from the catching spot into the left field, right field.
Yeah.
And the Pirates found out very quickly that 240 and 18 home runs were phenomenal numbers out of your catcher, but they were not great numbers from your starting left fielder.
Yeah.
So that would be my fear, is that, Travis might have decent pop for a second baseman, but if you put him out in the outfield, is he going to be Will Brennan 2.0?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll say this: I am excited about Travis Bazzana. Number one pick for the Guardians a few years ago, and a guy that does have a lot of pop in his bat. If he could play corner outfield, that would work out really well. But yeah, you bring up a bunch of names, even looking at Tyler Freeman, I think of even recently, Tyler Freeman came up through the ranks as a shortstop. I remember covering him in Lake County, and I was talking about him being, just in case Frankie Lindor isn't a Guardian, at the time, would Tyler Freeman fill the role of shortstop? And we're putting him out in the outfield at one point, so.
Put him, Angel Martinez, another guy like that.
Yeah, you just look at, I guess, the Guardians' just lack of outfielder play, has been the biggest problem, I think, not only defensively, but offensively as well.
For sure.
And that's the biggest thing.
I think it takes a special player to by the way, to play out of position and still get that kind of offensive production. Not many guys can do that. It's tough in the major leagues.
Yeah. But Bazzana being a number one pick, you would expect at least to try it out, I guess. But yeah, to your guys' point, you don't want to damage, this is like, the goods of the franchise. This is like somebody that you could really have a cornerstone for the next 10, 15 years, just depending if everything goes right. But, look at Pittsburgh. If they want to pay Paul Skeens, they have that in their number one pick. Back in the day, the Nationals, Steven Strasburg more on the pitching side, but, Bryce Harper, Mike Trout, maybe, I don't know. I got high hopes for Bazana. I've been, when Rizicki asked me, earlier, like a few months ago, he's like, what would it take to be excited about the Guardians next season? In some world that Travis Bazana ends up here. I know Brian Rocchio's an infielder. Maybe we even try Rocchio out there in one of the corner outfielder positions. I don't know. I'm just throwing things at the wall now, but I think getting Bazana in this lineup, Rizicki, wouldn't be the worst thing. He's got the pop. I mean, that's literally why he was brought in.
Yeah. That's going to be up to him. I mean, he's going to have to play his way in there because between Schneemann, between Arias, and then even Angel Martinez a little bit, Juan Brito is going to have something to say about that too. That might be one of the reasons why they would think about moving Bazana, is because second base is loaded right now with prospects and with options. So, yeah, if they're looking to get a bat in there, they might have to do it that way. And we could be sitting in a situation around the All-Star break that we know, Bazana is going to be a 220 hitter with 10 home runs, and that might be the best option we have in the middle of the season. So, yeah, at this rate, I roll my eyes when we start talking about moving guys around, because that's what this team, they draft a bunch of center fielders and shortstops and trying to convert them into everything else.
Yeah.
So, I mean, can we just have a natural second baseman play second base?
Eventually one of them's going to work out, Rob.
Second baseman plays third. Nobody in this infield plays their natural position.
Yeah.
And can we just get one? Can we just get one? That's where I'm at.
You're telling me that our infield is unhinged, like Double-A Anthony Alford at midnight tonight? Is that what we're getting at, Rizicki?
Well, the outfield's kind of unhinged, but yes, the roster, the offense itself is unhinged.
Yeah, shout out Double-A, man.
Yeah, I'm sure he's wandering around Stowe somewhere. I'm sure, navigating the parking lots out there, filming random videos. So,
dude, he's probably got his coffee going right now. He's probably had like 2 or 3 cups of coffee. He's probably getting ready right now, just locked in. He's excited. I talked to him earlier today. I got a vibe check from him earlier today. He's like, I'm excited. He's got a lot to talk about. So, but yeah, I think that is an interesting point though, Chad, about Bazana, but it's something we're going to kind of keep an eye on all season, and it's the offense. Rizicki, you were talking at the top of the segment before the segment about like what are the weaknesses of this team, and it's really the offense. Chad talked about it, 28th in offensive run production last year. That's pretty bad, man. And for a team that is, boasted at certain points, Cy Young Award winners and top 1-2 rotations in baseball, the fact that we're still sitting here without one ring since 1948 is just crazy, man. I mean, you look at 2016, you look at 24, you look at years in between there where if you would have just paid for a bat, if you would have just brought somebody in and stopped trying to get cute with like the Josh Donaldson pickup, which works out and it's a lot of fun until it's not fun and he's batting 150 in the postseason. That's what just frustrates me, man. And this is what happens. We spend over an hour talking about the Guardians and I start getting frustrated about them not spending any money, all right?
Can we just go back to talking about labor relations again? I just want to talk about that.
Yeah, we want to talk about the lockout, Rizicki.
Yeah. Well, really, one of the things on the offense that I'm looking at too as a weakness is right-handed bats.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are an endangered species. We got a couple of switch hitters, but it really just seems like everybody else, if it's Kafis, if it's Manzardo, if it's Schneemann, we've got DeLauder's a lefty, Halpin's a lefty, Nolan Jones is a lefty, Valera's a lefty.
I don't know when he comes up as
So what do we got? Like Jonathan Rodriguez, David Fry, and Arias. That's pretty much. And also we do have Austin Hedges too. So yeah, we're good there.
And that was a big offseason.
I know we're going to be facing a lot of right-handed pitching, but that lineup is, and we see it happen so many times where we just kind of get shut down if it's a lefty, or we almost don't have a chance even before the game starts. And that lack of versatility, and go back to the outfield, go back to the offensive problems. How many years have we been screaming about a right-handed power bat? I don't care if he's left field, right field, third base. If it's a Shohei Ohtani and we have to pitch him twice a week, fine, whatever. Yeah. As long as it's a right-handed power bat, that would do a whole lot to just lengthen this lineup out and actually, make this offense major league worthy. I'm not even worried about a good one yet. I was just like an average one.
Yeah. they're so vulnerable to the Tigers right now. I mean, you get into a short series with the Tigers and the Guardians are in trouble. I mean, with Skubal and Valdez, I mentioned it earlier, and then Verlander's. I get it. Verlander's in his 40s. He's whatever. But down the stretch in San Francisco, he was very good his last 9 or 10 starts. I think he had an ERA under 2. So I mean, he knows how to get guys out. He's savvy. Obviously right-handed, but like I said, the 2 lefties at the top of that rotation, I think, are going to give the Guardians fits.
A lot of lefties are going to give the Guardians fits, and that's going to be the problem. And the Guardians, when they're not having fits, aren't exactly thriving. So that's the other big problem.
Right.
Yeah, and Justin Verlander in a Detroit Tigers uniform at any point is not a good sign. I'm not a fan. Not a fan. I told Chad that on primetime. I said, anytime Justin Verlander's in a Tigers uniform, I don't care if he's 25, 35, 42, 45, whatever. It's not good. It's not good because I know we've had our success against Verlander, but it's just reminds you about those wars, man. You went, those AL Central dog days of summer, man. I'm cool.
I was about to say.
Flashback
I was like
2006.
I was about to say Verlander was not like the best against the Tigers. I'm just like the fact that we're still having this conversation about the outfield. It's been 10 years.
Yes.
It's been 10 years that this conversation has been going on about this outfield. I'm so frustrated with them. But that is their biggest Achilles heel going into the season. We know their pitching is good. We know that they have prepared their pitching. We know that their pitching is going to get better. But the fact that in the last 10 years, they still have yet to replace any outfielder from that 2016 team or that 2017 team is genuinely one of the most flabbergasting things that I think this franchise continues to do.
And to piggyback that off that, Autumn, you look at how this outfield would look if a random 5th round pick didn't hit. Stephen Kwan was not anything like I remember when he debuted. I think I tweeted out. I said, "What's a Stephen Kwan?" I had no idea what this guy was, and if that didn't hit, if we didn't have a steady left fielder right now, and at least 1/3 of this equation solved, like imagine how bad we'd be if we were playing this game with all 3 spots right now.
Oh, God,
I could.
It'd be 2008 again.
Yeah. And I think, that's going to be the biggest position group that we have to look at along with, and, we can talk about the lack of production with the outfielders, but, you look at the stat sheets and, how the season ended up, it looked like Bo Naylor was an outfielder. If you wanted to look at the stats and everything like that, we were talking a little bit about this off air and even in the first segment a little bit, 205 last year. And the only reason why that happened was because he was playing out of his mind in September. If it wasn't for that, it'd be 185, 180, And I think if you want to talk about players that need a big year with a lot of pressure on them, we got a 26-year-old catcher here who is not a young player anymore. This is year 3 of this experiment. And, we talk about getting help from the offense here. And I understand the outfield needs to do what they need to do, but their jobs would be a lot easier if we could put Bo Naylor in 5th in this lineup and count on him to drive in some runs that are just not in the last 3 weeks of September.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about that. Bo Naylor. First off, the big worry about him coming through the farm system was his bat. He's always known as a defensive catcher, but you definitely expect at least bat over 200, Rob. And I can understand the frustration there. Crazy to think that we trade away the better bat of the two, with Josh, let him walk. Just crazy to think about. This is year 3. This is a big turning point for Bo Naylor, 26 years old. Yeah, I guess regardless of if they trade for him, if they sign him in free agency, the Guardians and catchers, one thing is for sure. They will not bat very strong average-wise, but they will be sound defensively. And I guess we know what we're getting defensively with Bo Naylor. I think he is one of the better, I'd say in the top third of catchers defensively. But just we need something out of the bat. And this is we've seen, we keep talking about it, but Naylor's going to bat what in that typical 6-7 range, in the order. So it's going to be when we need to get back into the top of the order, when we get to the 1, 2, 3 in the order, can we do that? Because so many times you watch, especially early on last season, where you get to that 6-7 spot with 1 out, 2 outs, you're not getting back to the top of the order. Yeah. So yeah,
Well, between catcher, second base, and one of the outfield spots in almost every game, there were 3 black holes in this lineup. I mean, we were having a lot of games where 2/3 of this lineup were batting under 200. And you can't be. Yeah, you get down in the 6, 7, 8. You get down in the bowels of that lineup. You know, this isn't the Dodgers. You're not turning that thing over with a lot of power.
Yeah.
I don't care how good your pitching is. Yeah, you're not digging your way out of that hole.
And it's not fair either to the pitching staff. You know, we talked here. This is another thing I think. You know, we talk about all year and every season about how strong the pitching staff is. I will say, you know, if you look at this pitching staff on paper, if you're just a casual Guardians fan, you'd be like, man, we're in trouble, man. Where's like Shane Bieber and where's you know if you throw all the way back to Corey Kluber, like where are the guys that like stand out? But this Guardians pitching staff is still pretty good, and they have some interesting names. And I think it's a little unfair, however, to rely on these guys like they are the Corey Kluber, Shane Biebers of the world when the Guardians had that monstrous 2016 pitching staff. I think it's unfair to these guys to have them in all these 1-0 games, 2-0 games, where, you know, they feel like they can't give up a solo shot or the game's over. I just think that's not fair, and I think the offense is really going to have to step up. And we talked about the lockout, just to bring it back full circle. I think this is going to become important. Because David Blitzer, I believe, is the minority owner of the Guardians. Mm-hmm. He can technically, you know, we'll see what his stake looks like. But with the lockout and the Guardians offense not getting any production signing-wise to help this offense, maybe we see what that starts to look like after maybe a lockout or whatever. But one thing's for certain, the offense has got to step up because the pitching staff can only do so much. You can be the best in ERA and everything like that, but if you don't score any runs, you will lose every game. I promise you. That's how that works.
Kind of need to score. It's important.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. The pitching staff has no margin of error. They're used to that the last couple of years. That any mistake could be a fatal one, and and that's what I'm looking for. Not so much out of the bullpen. The bullpen, I know we got some new additions coming in. Some guys going out, most notably Jacob Junis leaving. But it's going to be the starting rotation that I'm really looking at right now, and it's 2 guys at the top of it. It's Tanner Bybee and Gavin Williams. You want to talk about guys that need a good year for the Guardians to do anything. Bybee needs to find the consistency. Bybee's numbers have gone down a tick, it seems like, every year he's been in the bigs. And some years you might get 7 shutout, or some days you might get 7 shutout. The next day, you're going to get 4 1/3, 6 runs. Yep. And he's got to be the top of the rotation pitcher. And if he's not, they got a guy right behind him in Gavin Williams who wants that job in his own right. Both those guys have to be stoppers. Both those guys have to terminate losing streaks before they get too big. And both of those guys have to give that bullpen a break and get used to going 6, 7 innings at a shot. And so we don't have these bullpen days where Jacob Junis or Hunter Gaddis or Matt Festa's rolling in the 4th inning to clean up a mess. That's going to kill the pitching staff more than the lack of offense will. The starting rotation is going to definitely have to hold up their end of the bargain.
Yeah, especially with the lack of resources. I mean, you can't run through your bullpen in May and June and July and expect them to be there in September and October. It can't happen.
No, honestly. And how many times have we seen that happen over the last not even last season, but the last like 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, we all thought Tristan McKenzie was going to be better than what he was, and he's no longer here. They trade Shane Bieber away. They essentially give the rotation to Tanner Bybee, and like Rob said, like sometimes it would be dominant. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to get. He has to settle down. He has to settle down. He has to get a rhythm. Now, we know he can get a rhythm. We know towards the end of the season, we saw him get a rhythm, but he has to start the season out good. That's their biggest thing. If that pitching staff can get off to a good start, that's always been that's always been the key factor. If that starting pitching can get a good start and get you at least within a run, the team is okay. Now, I know we are all nervous, but the pitching, that's the one thing I genuinely haven't been nervous about for like years.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about Cal Steven. I mean, you mentioned the Shane Bieber trade. I'm excited about Cal Steven. I think he's got a ton of potential. I mean, the strikeout numbers are there. I think he struck out 110 guys in 103 innings in the minors last year. Walked 20. He's always had good control. Doesn't give up a ton of home runs. The Guardians, Indians/Guardians, whoever, have always done really, really well with a pitcher like this. The fastball slider guys, they seem to hone those guys in. And to me, he could be a mid 90s fastball. I mean, he could be like a Corey Kluber type of Shane Bieber type of pitcher. And he could end up being the ace of this rotation in 2 or 3 seasons, I think.
And that's the fun part about the rotation is that I think they're a good 8 or 9 deep. You throw in dudes like Ciccone, you throw in Parker Messick, a lot of these guys that were kind of making their impact at the beginning of the year or at the end of the year last year.
Yeah, Logan Allen.
They could, what's up?
Logan Allen, yeah.
Logan Allen, yeah, you got Cantillo in there too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of these guys, and Cantillo really came around in the second half of last year. So, this is going to be a situation where it's weird. We haven't spent any money on them, but we're kind of like the Dodgers in that standpoint where we can weather an injury in the starting rotation or two and be comfortable with the number 6, number 7 guy residing in Columbus. So that will help out. And that is my one fear. And that's why I'm keeping an eye on the pitching going into this year is the one thing that we do count on. That is the one thing that is integral to this. Like if we start scoring all of a sudden 8 runs a game and this pitching staff forgets how to go, then we're still screwed. Like that's the base of the pyramid. That needs to happen for anything else to have a shot. That offense doesn't matter if this pitching staff doesn't do what it normally does. So, if it's going to be the bullpen or starting rotation, these guys got to have their act together
for sure.
Yeah, and they don't want to get into. I guess my final point on that is they don't want to get into dog fights early on in the season. We kind of talked about that, but you don't want to get into dog fights early on in the season. It's going to come down to Cade Smith, Hunter Gaddis, and Cade Smith. Closing down the 8th and 9th inning of these games when the Guardians do have leads, when the offense, if they do get out to a hot start and they surprise us all and they're scoring 3, 4, 5 runs a game, if they can close out these games, you don't want to have 10th, 11th, inning games, extra inning games in May against the White Sox where you could be having these, these innings used in October. So I think just taking care of business early. Big story of last year obviously was the Guardians weren't taking care of business early. That's why they had to rally behind to win the AL Central and get into the position they were, Rob. So I think just taking care of business early, protecting the arms, and fingers crossed that the bats surprise us. Some of these prospects surprise us, and some of the familiar faces like Fry and Kwan, and obviously our guy Jose. I mean, we don't ever have to worry about Jose, but some of these other guys, just stepping up.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. We talk about pressure. That's Jose's thing right there. And it's not like any sort of thing from the fan base or anything like that. We'd elect the mayor if we could. He's going to be here for 20 years. He's going to be the greatest, longest term Guardian anyway in history. Yeah. But his pressure is that he's the only one on the team that if he gets hurt or has a below average year, the team's done. He has to be him. Anybody else in this roster can get dinged up. Stephen Kwan, got hurt, at points in time last season. And we did have a couple decent stretches without him. Jose, there's not there. That's it. He is the alpha and omega. He is the end and the beginning. That is it. The other thing I do want to say while we're talking about guys, that we're looking at, we didn't ignore the closing spot, but I think we could all kind of agree that with all of the BS that he did handle last year with the Clase situation and everything like that, the fact that Cade Smith walked in and took over for the best closer in baseball and had a couple of blips at first, that first outing, 2 of the first 3 outings he had looked a little shaky, but after that, he took over for the best closer in baseball and didn't really, have any problem replacing that. And the fact that we have a number of guys in here that can file in and do a job in that situation, again, embarrassment of riches on the pitching staff. And I don't think we should ever take that for granted.
Yeah, absolutely.
All righty. That sounds about time for a break now. It seems like everybody needs a beverage, needs to go smoke them if you got them, use the facilities, whatever the case may be. We are about 2/3 of the way through our 2026 Guardians preview show. I am Rob Ruzicki. We got Eli Moon. We got Chad Bryan. We also got Autumn Chisholm here. We got one more segment left. We're going to go all the way until midnight tonight. Throw it over to our intrepid program director, Anthony Alford, for his late night musings. and then we'll get you going on your way. But we'll talk a little bit about Jose Ramirez and where he kind of stacks up in the all-time rankings for the Guardians. Again, a franchise that goes all the way back to 1901. Jose Ramirez is going to leave his stamp on it. Where does he stack up? And then also, too, the reason why we're all here. Let's call our shot. We got to predict what this team is going to do in this 2026 season. Do we think we're going to be celebrating a division championship, a playoff run, a World Series, or are we going to be dead and buried by the middle of August? We'll get everybody's thoughts in on that one and finish up the show here and get you going into Double A's extravaganza at midnight. This is the 2026 Guardians Preview Show on the Inside Edge Podcasting Network. I am Rob Ruzicki, Eli Moon, Chad Bryant, Autumn Chisholm. We'll see you soon.
unhinged sports talk at an hour where you need it most. Midnight Run with me, Anthony Alford, on the Inside Edge Network.
That is our illustrious leader, AA Anthony Alford. You will catch him actually in about 28 minutes at the top of the hour. His late night musings. What are we calling that one right now, Eli Moon?
Yeah, that's a Midnight Run with Anthony Alford.
Midnight
Unhinged.
Run. Okay.
Now I know we got a lot to break down here before we get out here, so I will be very quick with this. But Chad and I were putting our brains together yesterday. We're trying to think. We're like, okay, what could Unhinged with AA Anthony Alford mean? Now, we've all known AA for, like, different variations of time, Rob. Do you have any idea, like, Autumn, like, do you guys have any idea what Unhinged with AA Anthony Alford can... I don't know. I know what Unhinged with Anthony Alford looks like at 8:30. I don't know what it looks like at midnight.
It's bad. It's bad.
Stay tuned at midnight.
Well, and the other thing is, too, that I'm worried about, and we alluded to it last break. Double A's been Double A for the amount of time that we've known him, and for me and Moon, that's been 10 years. He's been Double A without coffee, and he has introduced that into his repertoire, into his fitness regimen, and that's going to be a little scary here.
I would stay tuned in for that if I were you, honestly. I would maybe want to check that out.
Yeah.
Well, when he was doing way back in the day, and we'll embarrass him a little bit here and take a little time. When he was doing, he had a student show at Ohio Media School. We were all going there, and it was about, I think it was 8 a.m.
Yeah, it was.
The first couple times he did the show, we actually had the president of the school and some teachers go down into the studio to make sure Double A wasn't fighting anybody. Because, like, imagine, 8 a.m. and you get Robin Williams' Good Morning Vietnam at 3,000 decibels. And quite frankly, he scared some people. Quite frankly, there were people that were fearing for their lives.
I'm not going to lie. I became a really good producer by running Double A's sound, because he goes from here to here to here. So they're very gracious, very gracious. But,
all right,
Rob.
All right, cool. I think we've kicked the crap out of Double A enough for this radio program. Well, we'll probably end up doing it too, at some point in time later in the show too. Yep. But yes, we do have the Cleveland Guardians to talk about. I don't know if you heard about this. They're starting their season soon. Actually, spring training starts. First game will be on the airwaves, 3:00 on Saturday. You can catch that WTAM 1100 and the iHeartRadio app here locally. The musings of Tom Hamilton and Jim Rosenhaus. But we're going to be in the thick of it before we realize it. And we had a lot of key things happen this offseason. Really, the key thing that happened this offseason was the peace of mind that all the Guardians fans have now. Our dude Jose Ramirez, he's going to be our dude Jose for a lot longer. So 7-year deal, about $140 million on that contract. He will, if he does play this entire contract here, tie Mel Harder for the most seasons ever played in a Cleveland uniform of any nickname, if that's the Guardians, Indians, Spiders, Naps, whatever. But yes, and that got me thinking, guys, where do we think Jose Ramirez is at right now at the list of all-time Guardians, and where's he going to be 6 years from now?
Yeah, it's interesting because, when you think of the Guardians, you think of like all the historic offensive players they had in the 90s. I hear Papa Moon still rave about the 90s and Manny Ramirez and Jim Tomei and Albert Bell and had Omar Vizquel on defense. Just playing lights out. You had all these greats, and then you think about, I guess like this generation of run, and it's really been, Jose Ramirez. Mm-hmm. And you've had other guys come along and have some stints where they've been fun. Frankie Lindor, who I still rock with Francisco Lindor, man. I know that probably isn't everybody's favorite take in Cleveland, but I still rock with Frankie. But, you have Lindor, you have Kluber on the pitching side, but none of them have like really had this impact, not only on the team and like the impact of what they can do getting to the postseason, getting to the World Series, but also like the community. Jose Ramirez is so like proud of the community, and he even says himself he's 50% Clevelander. And I think that alone puts him, okay, like, we always do he gets us, he gets us meter. And it's like Jose Ramirez knocks it out of the park every time. And I think like that alone puts him in the top 10 just because of how how prideful he is in Cleveland. And he's not egotistical. He's taken 2 massive pay cuts in terms of what he could have made on the open market as a free agent. And he's done that twice for Cleveland. He's helped, bring ballparks to Cleveland, been in the community. Somebody as me, I love the community. So for somebody to see him doing that here, on the baseball front and just loving Cleveland as much as he does, I think that alone gets you top 10. Then you see the production, Rob. He's at least top 3. I mean, I don't know. You have to have a discussion. I mean, there are some really good names in Cleveland Guardians, Cleveland Indians history, whatever, but at least top 3. And I mean, you could argue he's at least the best offensive player they've ever had. And that's saying a lot with, like I said, some of those guys that I named.
Well, and I'll just throw this in here real quick. I believe he's number 2 in home runs. He's number 2 in RBIs. He's number 2 in doubles. He's number 2 in steals. And all of those stats, except for steals, he's got a little bit to go to Kenny Lofton. But all of those power stats, we're probably looking at a year or 2 at the most before he is the all-time leader in pretty much everything in Guardians history. And I think, that comes with not leaving. All those 90s Indians guys you were talking about, they came and went. We saw Jim Thome in another uniform, Albert Bell, Vizquel, everybody else moved on with their day. Yeah. Jose Ramirez, he's ours, baby.
Yeah. Saw Manny Ramirez in almost every other uniform. I mean, he played everywhere by the time he was done.
Even in Korea.
Right. Yeah, including that. But yeah, I mean, the things you didn't mention, he's still up at 7th in hits, 9th in walks. It's very likely that by the end of this contract, he'll be first in franchise history and all those stats that you mentioned. Games played, runs, home runs, RBIs, double. He's probably not going to catch Earl Averill in triples. Averill had 121 triples. I don't think he's going to catch him. But probably a couple other guys he's not going to catch in triples as well. But yeah, I mean, top 2 or top 1 really in every stat category that matters on offense. I think you have to. I mean, he's quickly climbing the list. I think you got to put him. Yeah, like Eli said, top 2 or 3. I think it's fair to say. And I mean, by the time that contract is done, he'll probably be the best Cleveland, whatever, Indian, Spider, guard, whatever of all time, right? I think you got to
even better than Bob Feller.
And that's the tough thing. And like, that's why I keep like, I'm quick to not just say he's number 1 because my heart wants to be like Jose number 1 because of what he's meant for Cleveland, Rob. But you think of like guys that have meant a lot to the franchise, and I guess like that's the question. My question to your question is like, are you asking like impact on the field? Are you talking about impact to the franchise? Because there's been guys that have impacted the franchise that weren't here a super long time. Jim Thome still gets talked about in 2026 as a Cleveland Indian, at the time. But they talk about him still, and he wasn't here super, super long. I know he started his career here, but he wasn't here as long, as Jose Ramirez is going to end up finishing his career here. And I guess, that's where I guess there's different bases, to the question. I think here's the ultimate thing, though, and I'm curious to hear what you say, Autumn. But I think if Jose wins a World Series, then we're not having any type of discussion. I think he wins the first World Series since 1948 with the Guardians, and I think he's easily number 1 based off everything else I listed earlier.
Yeah, honestly, just thinking about it right now, I think of this team kind of in phases. Like we have the early, Cleveland Naps phase, and then you have the Feller phase, and then you kind of have those years where you didn't really know who was the face of the franchise, and somehow that comes out to be like Rick Manning, which is crazy. And then you have those 90s Indians where you could kind of pick anybody from that list and kind of say that they were the best in that franchise. And even now with the 2000s and now 2010s and now 2020s, Jose being the one constant is something that I never expected for him. I thought he was kind of going to go the Lindor route of eventually he was going to get his way out of here and maybe go to a team be serviceable, or maybe do a Carlos thing where after 12 years, the team kind of tells you, hey, we're not going to bring you back. But the fact that he's willing to come back multiple times, take multiple pay cuts, be the veteran in the locker room, I think he's probably going to go down as number 1. Now, we all know Bob Feller is number 1 because, of course, he was on the team that won the last World Series. But yeah, like you said, if Jose wins a World Series, there's no one that could touch him. Like no one. Like a Guardians World Series is something that a lot of people have like clamored for a really, really long time. And if he is able to sort of get them to that point, like, and we've seen it a couple times where he has been able to will the team into the playoffs and will them to a place where they can get almost there. But if he's able to do it, he's going to go down as the greatest franchise player just off of that alone. And then, of course, we always say, you know, he's one of our guys. He wants to be here. How many times have we had people and they say they don't want to be here? They don't like it here. Hey, he's good with me.
This is kind of a modern era stat, but he also leads the franchise in sanctioned knockouts. There's that too.
Yeah, I
Yes.
know you
Yes.
love you love that fight. I'll tell you this too. You know, Riziki, you know, imagine the 1.3 million for the Chaos Parade. I'm telling you, this city would just be in groves of people. I think there would be more than 1.3 if Jose and the Guardians could bring a World Series. If they really, I know we're gonna get to our prediction in a little bit, but if they could shock the world, I'm telling you, this city, you couldn't probably get out of the city till if they had the parade on Sunday, you couldn't get out of the city till Wednesday. It would be incredible because we talked about it. We talked about it 10 years ago on the show. On a completely different station there at Ohio Media School. But we're looking at, you know, my pops, you know, the generation before him, like, you know, and then you look at and then all these generations after that are just like, man, I want to feel like, why does New York and LA always get to celebrate World Series and we don't get to do that? I think this would absolutely be one of the biggest stories of 2026 if it were to happen. Not only in sports, but just, I think, like, in Cleveland, like, anything going on here or surrounding here, whatever, this would be one of the biggest stories because we were so close. We were literally innings away from it in 2016. Innings away, and here we are 10 years later still talking about it.
But
Yeah,
listen,
well,
a lot of
you-
national media would glaze right over it, Eli. They would glaze right over it. The national media would.
I don't care about what the national media has to say in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
no.
but and I think that is what messes with, or I think augments Jose's case when it comes down to important, you know, when it comes down to, you know, great Guardians, Indians, whatever you want to call it here, is the fact that if this team wins a World Series in the next 5 years while he's on the roster, I firmly believe that whatever day they are scheduling to have the parade for the team, they should have Jose's parade the day before. He is that important. And we mentioned all these other names, Bob Feller. We could even talk about Lou Boudreau back in the day, you know, managing the team while all this was happening. You know, this is a team that had Satchel Paige and Larry Doby, you know, not to mention all the 90s clubs and everything like that. None of those other names were as responsible for the team's success or failure as Jose Ramirez. If Jim Tomei had a bad season, it wasn't a shoo-in that the Indians were going to have a bad one. If Bob Feller had a bad season, you still had other guys on that rotation. With Jose, we talked about it last segment. His pressure is you have to be Superman for this team to have a chance. And I think the fact that Jose's lived up to that, by and large, the last 7 years, you know, that as long as he's been pretty much a regular player and that all-star we've known to grow and love, you know, he's lived up to that. So I think that has to count for something where he stands in this organization, because he is doing, baseball's not an individual sport, but for Jose Ramirez, it's about as close to an individual sport as it can possibly be.
Yeah. You know, we you know, I don't know. I think about like what Jose Ramirez means to, like, because like when I was growing up, it was Jim Tomei, right? Like my pops, and I'm pissed because we were talking about this the other day, me and Papa Moon. We were talking about how we had a picture growing up of Jim Tomei lifting me up over like in the players' parking lot. We'd take all the autographs and whatnot and had as a picture with me. Well, we lost a picture. Look, we moved a few times. We lost a picture. Not good. Not good. What is cool, though, is to think about like what Jim Tomei meant to like me. Like I styled my entire baseball career or, you know, game off of Jim Tomei, and what like a bunch of Clevelanders are thinking about Jose Ramirez and what he means. And I think that's like the biggest thing is whether he's top 1 or top 3 or whatever. If people want to argue top 5, which I think is kind of crazy, but I think top 3 is where the conversation starts. I think just his impact, I think, is something that we'll never argue. I mean, we can argue about whether, you know, he was a better Guardians player on X's and O's, but I don't think anybody's loved Cleveland more in Guardians history than Jose Ramirez, from somebody that, like you said, is not from Cleveland. This isn't like the LeBron, you know, he's from Akron, comes up to Cleveland. He's, you know, he's not too far from where he grew up from. You know, I mean, this is a guy that completely adopted Cleveland as like one of his hometowns. And I think that is one of the coolest sports stories. And yeah, Chad, to your point, the national media isn't going to care. But to Rob's point, we shouldn't care what the national media is going to say because nobody was really loving the Cavaliers until LeBron came back in town. And even then, we were second fiddle when Steph Curry and the Warriors in a big market in California became popular again.
And I guess, that's the question I can ask the group here too. You throw if you look at the Athletic, and the New York Times, that liberal rag, they've been giving the Guardians about a 2% chance of the World Series championship. The A's have a better chance. The Rays have a better chance. The Twins have a better chance. The Rangers and Royals all have better chances according to the Athletic. How does this national narrative that is not expecting much out of the Guardians, even though they did what they did last year, how does that really set with you guys? I'm sensing there's a little apathy with what the national media cares about us anyway.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Eli. Yeah.
Oh, no, Chad. No, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think a lot of people really, truly don't care what the national media says until it's time. Like when the Guardians start playing really well, then you start to notice, like, they're not even talking about us, right? And I think that's a fan thing. I don't think the players care about that at all. But I think the perception is that the Guardians just didn't really do anything to improve upon a team that really, really struggled to score. 15 and a half games down. It was a fun comeback. It was also the biggest comeback in the history of baseball. The likelihood that they can do that again is very low. And I think a lot of people just look at this team as the team that got down by 15 and a half games. They're down 11 games in September. Not as the team that won 17 of 19 in September. They also did that. I mean, they as equally as they did the bad parts of that comeback, they did the great parts of the comeback too, right? But I do think it's unlikely that it's going to happen again. I think if you look at the Tigers, they got better. I think even the Royals are probably a little better. I think a lot of people look at the Royals as the team that could finish second in this division. I think that people just really see the Guardians as a middle of the road. Well, I mean, the offense is worse than middle of the road, right? Outside of Jose Ramirez, maybe Kyle Manzardo. Stephen hit for average, but his game's straight out of the early 80s. I mean, he's not going to, like you said, 11, 12 home runs is it. That's the cap. I just think that people don't really know about the flashes of brilliance that the pitching staff has shown. But to Autumn's point, also the lack of consistencies, and that's what shows up, right? So I think that's kind of the word from the outside in. I mean, people look at the Guardians as a team who couldn't score, got down by a ton of games last year, needed a Tigers collapse. It was a pretty epic collapse from Detroit to come back and win the division. And what did they add? They stood pat. They didn't really add anything to that. In fact, you didn't lose Shane Bieber because he was only here for a couple starts, but I think a lot of people feel like you gave Shane Bieber to Toronto for a low-level minor leaguer. But again, I mean, when you look at some of the analytics on Steven, I'm excited about his future.
You see that Shane Bieber is going to be on the DL to start the season, so you do have that going for you too. At least our guy's healthy.
But he's pitched in some big moments, and I get what Chad's saying. There isn't just like the love from the national media. And I think at the end of the day, the Guardians are just going to have to surprise some people. That's, I think, the biggest word of this entire show is like surprise. Who's going to surprise? Who's going to break out? Who's going to stand out, Rob? And I think we talked about these names throughout the show. DeLauder, Valera, Manzardo with a consistent level. Bo Naylor, really. I mean, we're still waiting on really a Bo Naylor offensive breakout. I think we're going to have a lot of surprises. It's going to have to be like, when you guys, about 10 years ago took me to the Mexican restaurant and you told me that you weren't going to tell me it was my birthday, and then they came out with a sombrero and put a sombrero on my head, and we had them all sing happy birthday. Like, there's got to be like that level of surprise. Like,
he's been harboring that for a decade, by the way.
Yeah.
He used it as his social media picture for like 3 years. So yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Into it, man.
But yeah, go ahead, Rob.
I was just going to say, for the record, according to the Athletic anyway, the Angels and White Sox are the only two teams in the American League that have a worse chance of winning a World Series. That's where they don't think of us as an average team. They think of us as, right now anyway, the bottom of the American League.
Wild.
That's so strange because again, they won the AL Central. And it's not like this was like a fluke AL Central. They won the AL Central the year before that too. They've been pretty consistent over the last, I'm gonna say, 12 to 15 years in the mix. So I honestly, national media, I stopped caring about them a long time ago. When the Guardians, whenever the Guardians are on a run, they're still going to constantly question us. They're still going to constantly question, oh, look at the pitching, look at this, look at that. I could care less about the national media. To put all those teams in front of us that didn't even sniff the playoffs last year, though, that is an insult. You got teams that were below 500, below the barrel, talking about they're going to be better than this team. I know the offense is bad, but it ain't that bad.
Well, I think the national media is seeing the team that was down 17 games. I think that's what they're kind of looking at, and they're also looking at the fact too. Folks like the Rangers and the Royals, maybe not the Twins, but all the teams that are in front of us, the A's included, they've all done stuff this offseason. Like if I'm actually going to this write up of the Cleveland Guardians here. The first thing that they say is Jose Ramirez isn't going anywhere, but are the Guardians any better? I mean, yeah, that's the problem with extensions is that, yeah, as great as we feel about Jose Ramirez being in here until the end of time, they spent a lot of money and the roster was exactly the same before he signed the contract and after he signed the contract. They didn't improve the team. And when all of a sudden your notable addition is Sean Armstrong, when others are Kyle Tucker and Bo Bichette and all of these other big time names, that I think is what the national media is seeing. They're seeing a front office that either by their own choice or by rules set on the ownership isn't really doing much this offseason. And and couple that with a 17.5 game deficit, a month out of the end of the season. Yeah, I think they're seeing that the Tigers lost the division, not the Guardians won it. I think that might be where they're at.
Well, I said it on Main Event. This was like a legacy offseason for the Guardians. This was, if they inked Jose Ramirez, they'd be like, look, dude, at least we didn't lose Jose. So, we got that going for us. It's going to have to be some surprises, Rob. I know, like I said, I'll surprise people with my, prediction. I'll save it for my cue. But I think I think this season could have some fun. I think we could have some fun. Double A, I'll give him a shout out. We're going to have him here joining us in just a few minutes. He got me back into the Guardians ballpark at Progressive Field. We went out there. We had some standing room tickets. It was when I was still drinking, so we had a few shandies. I can't lie, I was feeling pretty good. But I started vibing out and going to more games after that. Now I don't drink, so now I have to have a nice I don't know. I'll have to find an alternative, like a Dr. Pepper or something. I don't know. Maybe that's not good on 90-degree days. But long story short, I think the energy at Progressive Field is going to be infectious this summer. I think with everything going on, we talk about, all on our shows across the board about just the world and everything going on in the world and people looking for an escape. And the Guardians might be that escape this summer, whether you're a second place AL Central team or whether they're winning 100 games or 100 plus games this year. I think they're going to be a fun escape. And I think people are going to be running down to Carnegie on Ontario, going to watch some Guardians baseball. I think I'll be with Double A at some standing room ticket games this year. We'll be kicking it, partying. And hopefully we can all party on the Inside Edge Network and celebrate a good season. But, yeah, that's my take, Rob. I think surprises. That's what we're going to need. It's like the Guardians are they're that, wonder. What are they going to do?
So our plan is hope. Okay, that works. All right. That's a whole lot better than spending $1 billion on free agents like the Dodgers.
That's all we got, man.
That's great. So I guess where does that hope kind of stand with us as we're sitting here on the 18th of February on the beginnings of spring training? Where do we think this team is going to end up when it's all said and done and we're sitting here in the middle of fall wondering what went wrong?
All right. Well, I guess I'll take it away. I'll say the Guardians go 95-67. I got a feeling, and we just did 2 hours of conversation. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about the prospects. I'm feeling good about DeLauder. I'm feeling good about Valera. I think we've had some shine in the postseason last year from them. I think we also could see this pitching staff. You talked about Bybee, you talked about Williams, Rob, at the top of this show. I think that could be very, very crucial, a 1-2 punch. I think 95 wins. They win the Central. I just don't think they get to the World Series. I think they're going to lose in the ALCS to the Toronto Blue Jays. I think the Blue Jays are getting back to to the World Series. To, I guess, make my full prediction, I think that it's going to be probably a repeat. I think it's going to be Blue Jays and Dodgers again, and I think we're talking about the Dodgers repeating. So that is my doomsday. Sorry, I saved it for the end. But I think the Guardians do win the Central, and they get to the ALCS, and it's going to be fun summer, but yeah.
If you're rooting for a cap, you're rooting for the Dodgers to win 3 in a row, because if that team just spends more than anybody and destroys everybody, then you get your salary cap.
It's like best case scenario. The Guardians have a great season, win the Central, almost win 100 games. They go to the ALCS, they don't win, so now we're heartbroken. Dodgers win, and now we're going to have a reset in baseball. So,
yeah, I mean, a reset in baseball wouldn't be terrible. Watching this team get eliminated from the postseason again would not be fun. That's why I think. Well, listen, wait. I don't know if you guys heard me ask or not. Does Hope hit right-handed? Is that a right-handed?
He's a lefty. He's
Not
a lefty.
the last 10 years.
Okay, fair enough. Then my prediction stands. Listen, I think they regress a little bit this year. And I know. The pitching staff looks good. They've shown flashes, but we really are counting on Kyle Manzardo to hit above 230. We're counting on Bo Naylor to just get to the Mendoza line, buddy. Listen, maybe Bo Naylor doesn't like to hit when it's cold. Who does, right? I get it. I understand. He warms up at the end of the season, like the weather. That's fine. The Guardians always seem to do that. They always seem to get off to a little bit of a slow start and then warm up when the weather does. That's not going to be enough to get it this year. I don't think they're quite as listen, I love Jose Ramirez, but extending him didn't do anything to help now, right? Like you said, Rob, it's great. It feels good. It's a feel-good story. Eli, you mentioned it. We didn't lose Jose Ramirez. That's great. But we also didn't gain any notable anything. There's nothing.
1 RBI, 1 home run, nothing.
Nothing. So you're counting on guys to chase DeLauder to do things he hasn't done. Kyle Manzardo to take a step forward, maybe. Who knows? You're counting on Travis Bazzana to maybe get here by the end of the season and be serviceable and hit, I don't know, 240, 250 with 10, 12 home runs down the stretch, because he's not going to be here for a whole year. I just don't – you're counting on too many things that are just unknowns right now. So I think 84 and 78, unfortunately, I do think they finished second in the Central. I think they just nudge out Kansas City, who I think is right there in that 80 to 83 win range. So they do at least finish second in the division. But, yeah, I don't think they make the playoffs this year, you guys.
Damn.
I know.
Damn.
I know.
Well, no,
I'm gonna be
kind of the same.
I'm gonna be a little bit more positive.
Okay.
I think they're gonna win at least 85 to 90 games. I think they have it in them. We've seen them do it. I think they can do it. They're a young team, but they're not inexperienced. They can build off of it. I do think they win the Central. Again, they've done it the last 2 years. I think they can do it again. Worst case scenario, they finish 500 and maybe in a wild card spot. Worst case scenario. But I think going into the season, you got to be positive. I've had a many a seasons where I'm like, they're going to suck, and I've been pleasantly surprised. But I'm going into this with positivity because I can't be negative about them anymore. I can't do it.
Yeah, I get it. We have the Browns for that. I understand. I totally understand.
Absolutely.
No,
What do you think, Rob?
I don't know. It seems like all of us are kind of thinking, low end, in that low 80s up to, even up to the mid 90s here. I'm in that area too. I'm thinking probably a redo of last year, even 88, 89 wins sounds about right. I don't think though that'll be good enough to win the division. I think that's going to go to Detroit. Yeah. They've just added too much, but we'll see though. The one thing you got to watch out with Detroit. Yeah, we had the biggest comeback in Major League history. They had the biggest collapse. Yeah. And does that stick with a team? Does that get in your head? So that's something that we do have to worry about with that one. But I still think it's going to be Detroit's division. Unlike you, Chad, I do have the faith, though. I think that is going to be good enough for a wild card spot. I don't know where that'll lead us. I mean, we've seen it happen before where teams get hot at the right time. And, that's where my whole hope thing comes in is that, this team just catches fire at the absolute right time and, can do what they do. But, we're not the Dodgers. The Dodgers aren't counting on people doing stuff they've never done before in the bigs. The Yankees, all these big market teams, they know what they have on their rosters. Cleveland, Cincinnati, even if you want to go National League, Kansas City, Minnesota, all these rosters, there's going to be this feeling out process in the first 6-8 weeks of the season. Remember Ramon Liriano, guys like that. You got to go. Sorry, it's just not working out well for you, Buckaroo. The other teams are going to have to deal with that. So we're going to have to burn some wins and losses getting through that.
Yeah.
But I think, when it's all said and done with, 88 wins sounds like a pretty good number.
I love the optimism, bro. And I got to be honest with you, Rob. We've worked over the course of 10 years with AA Anthony Alford. I don't know if you've got a chance to see, I don't know if he sent you a pre-show fit or anything. Nobody's seen him yet on screen, but this guy looks like he's ready. When he gets in here, he looks like he's ready to talk to the city. Like, he's ready to, give the Guardians prep speech, the pep rally, to get them going to the World Series. He just joined us. We have him backstage here. I'm going to bring him on here with us since we are past midnight. Technically, we're running his time now, Rizicki. So, AA Anthony Alford, the program director of Inside Edge Network, and the host of Midnight Run.
Just get signed to a managerial extension?
Welcome in.
Listen. I got a new job, new employment. If you dress up and go to the game and go to the 500 level, you didn't hear this from me, but you might get free food.
Oh, wow.
Well, I as a member of the media cannot use that information at all. So
you didn't hear that from me. I will say this though. I watched Jersey Chasers earlier, and I don't know if I want to use that unhinged tagline anymore after what Autumn said about all the unhinged men on Love Is Blind. So I don't know if I want to use that anymore.
No, it would fit in. You're from Ohio. You guys are unhinged. It's okay. It would fit in.
What exactly?
She said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but she basically, all men in Ohio. I'm kidding. I'm not going to lump in all men, but the men that's in Love Is Blind. They're not coming through right now. Am I getting that right, Autumn?
They're all so boring. They're so boring. I hate them so much.
Let me ask you.
I told you, I hate a self-hating person, but they're so boring. They're so boring.
First, I just want to say all of you guys have done a great job. I do want to ask you guys this too, real quick. Rob, you brought this up after that collapse with Detroit in September. Even though Detroit won the division last year, I guess my question.
They didn't win the division last year.
Well, yeah, they didn't, but they won the division series.
Oh, they won the series that counted. Yeah.
Yes. So I guess my question: which fan base feels better about their team coming into this season, the Guardians or the Tigers?
It should be the Guardians.
It should be us, because we've now. It's up to Detroit to break the cycle. Back when Verlander was there the first time and they had the Miggy, Victor Martinez, that run, it was fait accompli that they were going to kick the shit out of us 18-1 throughout the regular season. Now that's flipped over the last 4 or 5 years. They've been our little brother. So Detroit is the one. It's up to Detroit to break the cycle. So I would think that Cleveland, if we have the same season we did last year, we win the division. If Detroit has the same season they did last year, they lose the division in epic fashion. So, yeah, I would think that at least we're probably a little bit more comfortable with this script than Detroit is. We've seen the story unfold before for our favor. I don't know if Detroit has constructed a scene that yet.
I think it might be Detroit, though, just because they got Skubal back. They got Verlander. I know. I guess I get it. The Guardians have had success against Verlander, but the rest of the Central necessarily hasn't. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Skubal plus Verlander getting him. Plus they retained all their bats for the most part. I mean, so look at that lineup. You got Torkelson. You got Green. There's just so many bats in that offense that you're just like, how do you stop that if you're the Guardians? I do think they do. I think they do. Like I said, I predict them to win 95 games. And I can't go back on that now. We're locked into October. But I think it's gonna be a battle. I do think the Tigers do win 89, 91 games, something like that. But I think right now, going into the season, the Tigers feel better about it. They retained their best arm. They brought back a familiar face. They have all their bats on offense.
Don't forget Framber Valdez too. I mean, they've got some punch.
It's another big pitcher in their own right too.
Yeah, right. So I mean, you just think about that, plus, the Guardians were, I've been selling hope for the last 2 hours, Double A. What you been doing?
Prepping and trying to muster a little bit of hope. We got some sound we're going to play from Mr. Turnoff that might bring the hope down a little bit. I wish didn't want to come in with bad news, but we want to stick around for that sound here in a few minutes.
I love Cherney. That front office does great with their resources.
Yeah.
But that being said, if we were about ready to go into battle, or if we were about ready to get, like a life and death fight, I do not want him giving the Bill Pullman Independence Day speech. I don't want him, doing the Hoosiers and Gene Hackman. I don't need that. He is not the guy to pull that one off. Let's just pick the players. We'll let somebody else, get everybody else going here.
It would go like this. Hey, guys, I know all we got is ramen noodles, and y'all go die, but we gonna work hard on the way there. But we're training the shrimp flavor. We just got chicken and beef right now. Don't worry.
Risiki, I think before we become unhinged with Double A in his midnight run, maybe we should put a bow on these Guardians preview show and okay,
and real quick too, and Double A, I think with the tie you need to get the desk and the sidekick and maybe Questlove and the Roots and get the full late night thing going. I think that might not be a bad idea.
I need a leather chair at Double A that's taller than it's like a big leather chair. You know what I mean?
There's a late night host that might have some supplies available soon, so I might dive into that.
And he might. Hey, actually, if we're looking for personalities, he's going to be looking for work too.
Yeah.
All right.
Ain't that a shame? Show some balls, CBS. Sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
Okay. Actually, I wish CBS would censor us because every time they censor anybody on their roster, their viewership kind of quadruples overnight. So, yeah, I'm all for any sort of CBS censorship. Barry Weiss, get your ass over here. Tell us what to do here. But since we're really going off the rails right now and we're talking about that kind of stuff, I think we will put a bow on this Guardians 2026 preview special. Obviously, keep along with the Inside Edge Network through the vast array of shows we do have. We'll be talking Guardians all spring, summer, and fall. Good, bad, and ugly. We'll be with you the entire way here on the Inside Edge Podcasting Network. Up next, we have Midnight Run with Anthony Alford. Sounds like a Burt Reynolds movie from back in the day. All right, but yes, we got Midnight Run with Double A Anthony Alford. Special thanks to Eli Moon, to Chad Bryant, to Autumn Chisholm, and the entire crew here for the 26 preview special. Double A, we will throw it over to you. I hope you have a wonderful show. And for everybody here, we'll see you shortly.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And here we go. Welcome to Midnight Run here on the Inside Edge Network. I think Eli will be the only one sticking around because he volunteered to produce this show. So he'll be the one sticking around.
Yeah.
So flip over. I think we can flip to my page. We'll kind of see what's going on there. But I'll tell you what's happening right now with baseball. It's great to have a season coming up. It really is. But as Rob and all the guys were talking about it, Autumn, everyone was talking about this is fun. This is fantastic. What's happening with the Guardians and what's happening with baseball. But there is a dark cloud, and that is December of 2026. So how do you go into a season knowing that, hey, this is going to be a fun year, while knowing that a run at the championship is probably not likely? It's tough, and it's a tough sales pitch. And it's really a tough sales pitch when you hear this sound. I don't know, Eli, if you have it ready to go. When you hear this sales pitch from Guardians General Manager Mike Chernoff about basically what they can't do. It's no hope in terms of what they're able to do. It's more of what can't they do. This is courtesy of Foul Territory TV.
I mean, look, we are a young team. We're one of the youngest teams in baseball. We have been for years. We have to do things differently. We're a small market, and in today's economic environment in baseball, we can't go out and sign top-tier free agents. It's just impossible with the economic landscape. So we have to do it through scouting and development. And a huge part of that, as you guys all know from your playing careers, is your off season. You have to find a way to raise the floor in your off season, right? How do you keep building? How do you, whether it's the physical profile, the bat speed, the velocity, the command, whatever it is, how do you build those things in the off season and really push the envelope on what you can do? So we try to provide as many programs as we can for our guys. And thankfully we have a culture where guys buy into that and they love being out here together.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. I mean, but, and I guess our guys talked about it before. It's like, all right, we understand the reality. Sign somebody, anybody. You know, it's amazing last year when I went to games, and I'm not here to be a Debbie Downer. I am not. I went to the game where the Guardians clinched the AL Central. It was a Saturday night. It was every promotion you could think of, Dollar Dog Night, fireworks night, anything else you could, half price. Everything was on discount, everything. I took the Rapid actually to go downtown. It was phenomenal, and they won the division, completed that comeback against the Tigers. It was fantastic. But we just talked about it a few minutes ago. When you hear those things like, oh, we can't sign top-tier free agents, that doesn't get fans excited about a championship. I mean, we know people. We know fans, like grumpy fans. And they're grumpy, and they have a right to be grumpy. To not have a World Series championship since 1948. You have those fans who are like, oh, you're buying into this again. You're buying into this. And where's the success in October? Where is the success in October? Do you have the resources to have that success in October? That's a major problem. But this is 2026, where we are in a culture of chasing championships. This is not, we are past the days of college football, just going to a bowl game is good enough. We are past the days of just placing, right? That's not good enough. Nobody here in the United States celebrates a bronze medal or a silver medal, to point out the Olympic theme that we're in right now. Nobody celebrates that. It's always championship or bust. So the bigger question here, we're going to enjoy this season. We will. It's going to be fun. Guardians going to open up. I believe the home opener is going to be against the Cubs. Boy, that brings back memories. But it's going to be a typical Friday opening up. And we're going to have fun. We're going to enjoy the journey. But what is the journey where you know that the end of the journey is a cliff and not a rise to a championship? That makes it tough. So I mention that because obviously here in Cleveland, we're not the only team facing those challenges. One of my best friends, hate to admit this, but if you don't know much about me, Cleveland sports fan through and through. But I have some best friends who are Pittsburgh Steelers fans. One happens to work with Eli and I on Sundays. One of my other best friends, I do the Side Hustle Wrestling podcast with, he's a New York Yankees fan. And he's telling me that the Yankees are in trouble right now. Hard to believe, and I don't want to buy into that myself, but we're going on almost 20 years since the Yankees have won the World's Championship. And we've seen it. 2 years ago when the Yankees and Dodgers faced off in the World Series, it's that much of a difference in talent. So I guess my question is something that these mid-market owners, these small market owners are going to have a huge say about, including the Guardians. Yes, you're going to be excited about this season. You should. You better be excited. It's sports. It's something to do, something to go to. Guardians games are always enjoyable, always, if they can get a lick of offense going beyond Jose Ramirez. It's fun. Are you willing to sacrifice the 2027 season to even the playing field in terms of talent that you could acquire? That's the major question. And as much as it's easy for us fans, and I'll put it to perspective, I'm 34 years old. I was 2 when the last Major League Baseball strike took place. I can't tell you firsthand how that went down, but I can tell you that in 2020, going 3 months without baseball or any sports in particular, that kind of sucked. And there is no alternative in the summer where there's no baseball. So I would like to think, all right, maybe these owners are going to band together and get that salary cap and salary floor to force these teams to spend money. I mean, at least we're not the Pittsburgh Pirates. They're over there. You got Paul Skeens and friends, and that's it. Any one of us on the Inside Edge network could be batting in that lineup with the Pittsburgh Pirates the way that they pay. So at least it's not that situation. But can you convince the Pirates, the Guardians, the Tampa Bay Rays, some of these other small market teams that we could sacrifice some time to even the playing field? Or do we choose profit? Do we have to get those spring and summer dates in 2027 and go with the status quo? Do you go, does the Yankees even step up and say, hey, we need some help? Do they step up and do that? I don't know. I think ultimately, I think the worst of the worst, my fear is that we're going to miss significant baseball time with this lockout and nothing's going to get done. That's my fear. And that's the part I worry about. So there is a way to approach this. Why should we be excited about the Guardians this season? It's like, I'll put it to you this way. You know a divorce is coming, a breakup is coming, but you got a few months to kind of simmer. So, hey, let's just make it to that graduation. Let's wait until the kids are out of the house. Kids are going to graduate this year, and then we'll handle business. That's the feel of this Guardian season. So, again, the guys did a great job covering that. Again, we're going to do more with this Guardians team. I'm excited to go to the games. There's nothing better, in my opinion, than taking a rapid. I mean, do you see – I don't know what's going on in your town for those of you watching outside of Cleveland and Northeast Ohio. Do you see the parking prices here in Cleveland? Would you in any way, shape, or form drive to downtown Cleveland? Take the bus, take the rapid, public transportation. It's $5. It's an all-day pass to and from. And you could drink as much as you want, even though I have been cutting down on alcohol myself. So I know Eli brought up like, hey, we got standing room. We do got standing room games that we're going to go to and see, but it probably won't involve alcohol. It won't involve overpriced alcohol. But, dude, $5, go on down, get the all-day pass. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. And look, all the pressure is on the Detroit Tigers. All the pressure is on the Detroit Tigers. We'll see how they handle it. again, opening day, or the Guardians will start on the West Coast. They'll start at Seattle Thursday. I believe it's Thursday, March 26th. They'll start at Seattle. And then the following Friday, they'll open up here against the Chicago Cubs. All right, we are off and running here on Midnight Run. When we come back for the transition, I think we're going to hit all three teams today, and we got some college stuff we're going to hit on before 1 o'clock here. Cavaliers' second half expectations. That schedule looks very, very favorable. Can the Cavaliers, can Donovan Mitchell and James Harden, and by the way, don't look down the injury report. You might get Evan Mobley tomorrow night. You might get him tomorrow night. We'll talk about the Cavs, but the bigger question, would you pick a championship or the LeBron James retirement tour? You can't have both. Which one are you choosing? We'll talk about that on the other side. Also, later on, the Browns have to replace their entire offensive line going into next season. That hasn't happened. I'll give you a fact right now. That hasn't happened unofficially since 1970. Unreal. Hasn't happened. And then also Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, the College Game Day podcast. Someone mentioned on that podcast, maybe they should split off and go do their own thing. Would that crumble the Big Ten? Is that something that they would do and look into? We are off and running. This is Midnight Run. You see the QR code over there in the corner. That's how you can follow us on our YouTube channel, Inside Edge Network at Inside Edge Net. We got all that stuff coming up for you. We're off and running. Eli's my producer tonight. I'm Double A Anthony Alford here with you until 1. It's the debut edition of Midnight Run on the Inside Edge Network. Back after this.
This is Midnight Run on the Inside Edge Network. Here's your host, Anthony Alford. This is Midnight Run on the Inside Edge Network. Here's your host, Anthony Alford.
And we are back on the Inside Edge Network. That is me. I need a little sense of approval. Eli, add yourself to the stage here for a second. Eli's producing the show here today. Did you like that? Do you like that? I didn't even tell you about that.
You surprised me. I think you surprised everybody out there, man. You're doing a great job, and yeah, I got to be honest. I didn't think that you'd have your own intro music. I didn't think you'd have all this ready to go like this day one. But you know, it's shame on me for not knowing you better. You're doing a great job. I'm excited to be part of the inaugural episode here of Midnight Run here on the Inside Edge Network. And yeah, you outdid yourself. I mean, the Guardians jersey, talking baseball, your first segment on your solo show here on the network. I mean, yeah, you impressed me. You impressed me.
First segment, me talking baseball. That won't happen that much. I was going to put it
Yeah. Yep.
I'm going to point that out. No, but first off, Eli, you, Rob, Autumn, Chad, you guys did a great job at the preview show. If you missed the preview show, it'll be on this stream. It'll be on archived on YouTube. Again, that QR code there. I got to put that in on all the shows, that QR code. I found some things out with StreamYard.
I like it.
So there you go. Again, Eli volunteering his services tonight, producing the first show right here on the Inside Edge Network. We transition over to the Cavaliers, and this second half is going to be amazing. First off, a few weeks ago when James Harden was traded here to Cleveland, we all made jokes about the strip clubs he was going to boost businesses for. And again, you don't have to listen. Strip clubs have good wings. They have good food. All right. I heard from somebody else, listening to Sirius XM earlier. They're like, oh, a good time to go to the strip club is during the afternoon. I'm working. I don't go, but like, good vibes. Middle of the afternoon. That's boom, commentary there. All right. I want to bring up a point about LeBron. But first, let's hear from Bill Simmons. Of course, the Bill Simmons podcast, part of the Ringer. Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, Cavaliers were hot going into the break, and now they're going to be back in action later on today. Let's hear from Bill Simmons about what he thinks the second half is going to turn out.
Cleveland, right now, 34-21. The over is 52.5. They would have to go 19-8 over their last 27 games. Last 25 games, House, they're 18-7, fifth in net. They added Harden, they added Schroeder. They haven't been healthy all year, and I think, to me, that's a 60-plus win team, especially with Harden, the fact that he's durable, and they could have somebody take a night off, and he could just run the offense. They'd have to go 19-8 to beat that over and under, and I like it.
I like it, too. Now, I think the way that they reinforced their depth, obviously Harden, but more importantly, Schroeder backup, competent guy that can consume minutes. And the Ellis piece of this is super underrated. We're barely scratched the surface of what Ellis is going to be for them. I think that they are loaded and their schedule is great. They get Brooklyn twice. They get Dallas twice. They have the Bucks twice. And then all of the bums, Chicago, the Pelicans, the Wiz, the Pacers, Utah. I really like the way that Cleveland's lined up here.
Yeah, and again, courtesy of the Ringer and the Bill Simmons podcast. And again, they're going to open up against the Brooklyn Nets, 7:00 later today on Thursday. They got the Nets, and then they have the Charlotte Hornets on Friday. And then Sunday, they got a couple big games next week. OKC on Sunday afternoon. Of course, our Sunday morning show guys, Chad Bryan, Ryan Mosser, TK Dandridge, they'll get you ready for that on Sunday. And then the New York Knicks on Tuesday. So a couple of important games, but these next two games, some very winnable games. And then I believe there's a point, I will have to check this again, from mid-March to the end of the regular season, the Cavaliers have the easiest strength of schedule remaining. And that's the one thing that the Cavaliers have lacked over the last few years. going into April and May, they've never gone into the playoffs in the Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland era. They've never gone into the playoffs hot. They've had hot regular seasons, and then they faltered. Even last year, even with the historic regular season last year, the Cavs, it was more about maintenance going into the playoffs than anything. And Donovan Mitchell, his body gave up on him. And Eli's telling me right now, as of this moment, 5th easiest schedule the rest of the way, second half of the season. So this is an opportunity to get hot, to get going in to the playoffs. And don't look now. Let's see, it's February 19th. April 18th is the first day of the NBA playoffs. This is going to be a sprint. A month from now, it's going to be March Madness, the NCAA tournament, and then we're off and running. So this second half is going to be a sprint to the finish line for this Cavs team. And it's exciting. And for the first time in a long time, I actually care very deeply about the Cavaliers regular season. It's actually kind of fun to think about how James Harden, boy, you see Jared Allen, by the way? Yeah, he's been that dog. And now can Evan Mobley elevate himself to that list? So the ingredients are there for the Cavaliers to finally go into the playoffs hot. They clearly knew about Darius Garland and his health status. We received reports that he's still going to be out. We don't know when he's going to return for the Clippers or debut for the Clippers with that toe injury. And the Cavaliers, look, credit Kobe Altman and Dan Gilbert and the whole staff. They made the move. They knew Darius Garland. They knew his physical. They knew it. And hopefully he'd get back up and running, but that toe is not good. Not good. And again, when you're facing big guys in the playoffs, these are teams, again, New York, Boston, these are teams, Detroit, they're going to beat you up in the playoffs. You got to be able to hold your body intact going in and be tougher. So hopefully they could do that. Now, the one thing I'm not liking right now, I don't know if it's really happening in the media. I don't know if it's happening with fans. It all started in the late 2000s when fans stopped being exclusively fans of their teams and started to be fans of players. There are certain fans out there who are already saying, this season, whatever, fine. LeBron, Giannis, LeBron. All right, let's gas up LeBron here for a hot second. Let's play this clip here. LeBron James on the Mind the Game podcast. He was on with Steve Nash. Here's his assessment of the second half of the season and the moves that the Cavaliers have made. Take a look.
So I think let's park the clips for a minute. But for the Cavs, I think this is potentially a difference maker.
Yeah, and they're going for it.
Yeah.
They're going for it. They felt like they needed, another playmaker, someone that's been there, kind of been in this situation before, and they added James, like you said, perennial all-star, who's still putting up all-star numbers, gives, Donovan Mitchell another ball handler guy who can make shots at the late in the game, but also those pickups that they got from from Sack as well.
Yes.
Schroeder, a former teammate of mine, that's going to compete every single night, and Keon Ellis, guy who's going to compete, make shots. Those guys are going to be, I think, really, really good for that team, right?
Yep.
And especially in the East, where it's a lot of bulk, a lot of you got to have some dogs in there. So I think they added a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a great point about the two bench guys,
Yeah.
Ellis and Schroeder. Schroeder, obviously, he's going in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
For not only having an NBA career, but what he's done with Germany.
Yeah, for sure.
World Championship
Yep.
and the Olympic medal, European Championship.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a guy who's pressure tested.
Yeah.
So you add that to your bench, which is great.
Yeah.
I think there was something off with the Cavs, and I think it's hard to judge them because they were always injured
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
Getting back to our conversation.
Yeah. No Garland and Strus. He hasn't played. Strus hadn't played all year as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
I feel like Strus, it's interesting. I know we know him as a shooter, but like he was the dog on that team.
Yeah.
The guy that's going to stick his nose in there every night. And I think they missed that a little bit personality wise. So, yeah, I think that's a difference maker for them.
Yeah, and again, courtesy of Mind the Game podcast, LeBron and Steve Nash. I want to bring up one point before I get to LeBron. Let me get Eli back on the screen here for a second. Max Strus, any word of when he's going to come back at all?
Yeah, that's been the biggest conversation, Double A. Sam Merrill stepping up. They're talking about he's starting to ramp up activity, this through Fantasy Pros, but a return not imminent, you see 9 hours ago from CBS Sports. So, Max Strus ramping up activity amidst his recovery from the offseason foot surgery, but doesn't seem like he'll be ready for game action imminently. He's deemed week to week, so they're going to keep looking for Jalen Tyson and those guys to hold it down. But Double A, as I'm sure you're alluding to here, Max Strus, a guy that can play pretty decent defense, can shoot the three, is the only guy besides now James Harden with the 2012 finals that has finals experience. Max Strus being with the Miami Heat there in the 2020 NBA finals. So I think it would be big to get him back in the lineup. But I think it was also interesting to hear Steve Nash and LeBron kind of talk about these other pieces. Dennis Schroeder, a very storied career as well. But yeah, Strus, week to week, they're deeming him still trying to get back from the offseason foot surgery.
Yeah, we hope. Thanks, Eli. We hope that he can come back. Again, the Cavaliers are very conservative when it comes to health and injuries. I mean, let me make one thing clear. Just my request to the fine Cavaliers organization. And I thank Dan Gilbert for always opening up his wallet and spending money. I thank the Cavs for having a boss to say, oh, let's break away from this core four thing. My one request, when your players are injured, let's not designate, and they're not doing it here at Max Strus. They're doing week to week here. But I'm just going back to last season in the playoffs. Let's not go with a day-to-day designation. And then we find out, oh, actually, Duke can't play at all. He ain't healthy. I felt so bad for Darius Garland, not because he was hurt, but because of the unrealistic expectations the Cavaliers organization put on Darius Garland in relation to how the injury was reported during the playoffs. I mean, go back to that first round series against Miami. What was it, game 3? When we put up, 55 points? A 55-point blowout against Miami? I believe it was game 3 or game 4. Like, we blew them out. It was a beatdown. And then you get word that, oh, Darius Garland hurt, injured toe, day by day. And then we finished the job against Miami. So you basically have a whole week before the following series against Indiana. All right, cool. Get rest up. Be ready to go. Garland's going to be back. Oh, he's still hurt? He's still hurt. And now on February 19th, 2026, he's still hurt. I know he's played, obviously he's played games, but yeah, we got to be a little bit more transparent with the injury reports. Because now as a fan, I'm like, dude, your day-to-day, what's going on? So just want to get that out there. We heard reports, I believe Brian Windhurst, he was on talk radio earlier today, mentioning that LeBron might be offered the vet minimum to come here to Cleveland for the retirement tour. But I want to, and this is, if you're just, watching me for the first time or you see me around the block, that I like to forecast ahead. I like to just, okay, where are we going to be at come May, come June, come next year? What are we thinking, right? Let me run this by you. Let's say Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, say you have a healthy Max Strus, Evan Mobley elevates himself, Jared Allen goes to work. Basically, what I'm saying is you get best case scenario for the Cavaliers. They finally get over that second round hump. And then, I don't know, the conference finals, you face Detroit, you beat them, you're in the NBA finals. Perhaps against OKC, who we're facing on Sunday, or it could be Denver, it could be San Antonio in the NBA finals. And either the Cavaliers win it all or we come close. Do you really want to blow this thing up just for LeBron James's retirement tour? Even at a vet minimum? Do you really want to blow this thing up? Now, me personally, and this is where the conflict is lie. I think LeBron would be cool. It would be a cool story for him to come back and to use wrestling terms, finish the story. There ain't no way you would want that here. If either we're this close to winning the championship or we've already won the whole effing thing. I just don't see a path at all where you would, I hate to use the term, blow things up just for LeBron. And here's the other spectrum of this. Because ideally, best case scenario, you want LeBron to come to you if you're the Cavaliers organization asking to come back. You don't want it the other way around. You want LeBron to come to you to say, hey, let's come back. Let's make some magic. Because you, as the Cavaliers organization, you want that power to say no. Okay, this doesn't have to be a yes or no type of situation. We don't have to say yes. You can say no. You could do that. Here's the other end of the spectrum. Let's say this Cavs run doesn't work out. Worst case scenario. Let's say it's another second round exit or a first round exit. Will LeBron look at the Cavaliers and want to come back? If it's that much of a gap in a year where the Eastern Conference doesn't have Jason Tatum, in a year where Tyrese Halliburton is not a part of the Indiana Pacers healthy roster, like he's not playing this year, where the Eastern Conference is going to be stronger. I guess my point is, I don't see a path where the LeBron James retirement tour happens here in Cleveland. I just don't see it. I don't see an ideal situation where the Cavs could welcome him back or LeBron would welcome himself back. I just don't see it. Maybe it's a year too late. Maybe if LeBron would have been available at the end of last season, okay, now it makes sense because he was that missing piece. Maybe James Harden is the missing piece that you need right now. If your bigs are elevated, and then what happens if Max Strus is back? You already have a family-like culture here. Do you want to bring LeBron and friends into that circus? Again, I love LeBron. I support LeBron. LeBron is one of my all-time favorite players. The dude left twice. To think that he's able to just dictate and stop things. I mean, we played the clip a few minutes ago. Oh, what that reminded me of a little bit? And I know we got to go to break real quick. What that reminded me of? Urban Meyer in 2011. He had just finished up at Florida. He took a year off to do broadcasting for ESPN, and he was in the booth in 2011. And one of his first games was an Ohio State football game. And he mentioned he slipped up the word we when he was talking about, I believe it was Braxton Miller. And you kind of knew, oh, Urban Meyer, even though he wasn't hired here yet, he's already in his mind publicly making decisions for Ohio State, which they needed that at that time. Transition. Do you want to dictate what you want to do with this roster with LeBron, who is notorious, by the way, of, when LeBron leaves teams, your roster is a mess. It's like a massacre when LeBron leaves your organization. So it's a lot more cons. It's a lot more, I don't know, and I don't see it. Again, it would be a cool story. I don't see a path where it happens. I do see a path where you should get phenomenal candles. AlleyRoseFragrances.com. I had mine for almost a week now, and I still have candle that still needs to be burned. I'll tell you what, when you open the boxes, you immediately smell greatness. It's phenomenal. Every household, every apartment, every living space needs a good smelling home. And if you have a significant other, or if you're even a female, get one of the body mists as well. Alley Rose Fragrances, AlleyRoseFragrances.com. My friend Allison, she makes all these candles herself. She's from here locally in Cleveland. She's, producing these out in Charlotte. She'll get to you quick, easier burnt, or, it's healthy compared to the competitors. The burn time is longer. I've noticed, I've had candles in the past where after 2 days, it's done. That's it. I've had this candle for just about a week, and we still got more to go with this. AlleyRoseFragrances.com. And when you go, you see it right there. Type in the promo code InsideEdge20. You get 20% off of any order that you put in. What I would do, get a couple orders of candles, get some body mist, and use that InsideEdge20 promo code. You will not regret it. All right. We got more show to go. We're here with you for another 10, 11 minutes or so. We still got Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. Should they break off into another conference? We're going to hear what College Game Day, their podcast, had to say about that. We'll react to it. And then in my very first installment of Dear Diary, we're going to talk about the ever-changing Cleveland Browns offensive line. Anthony Alford here with you. This is the debut edition of Midnight Run right here on the Inside Edge Network. We're back in just a moment.
Here's your host, Anthony Alford. This is Midnight Run on the Inside Edge Network. Here's your host, Anthony Alford.
I ain't gonna lie, I love that open. I love it there. Thank you very much. Welcome back. Final segment. This is, again, Midnight Run. This is a sprint. This is a sprint before you go to bed. Or you might stay up. Who knows? I'm actually off tomorrow. I would like to celebrate the fact that I'm off tomorrow, but no. My refund money has come in from taxes. Ooh, I get to celebrate. Cool. I need new tires. I'm getting tires replaced and an oil change. So this is a time for that. Real quick plug as well. After I take care of business with that, you gotta go to BA Sweeties. Check out BA Sweeties. When you go to BA Sweeties, tell them Double A sent you. Double A sent you to BA Sweeties. Again, courtesy of the Side Hustle Wrestling Podcast, which you can hear right here on the Inside Edge Network. We got some things to talk about with WrestleMania season. We'll drop that show Friday morning, myself, Kyle Cornell. But go to BA Sweeties, and when you go to the counter, mention the word lollipop after you put in your order, and you'll get some discounts on your order. So tell them that you heard it from Double A Anthony Alford, Side Hustle Wrestling Podcast, BA Sweeties. Just wanted to give them a quick plug. All right. We're here with you until 1:10. We're here with you for that. We got Dear Diary coming up involving the Cleveland Browns. Wyatt Teller announcing that he is not returning to the Cleveland Browns. And with that being said, that means that the entire offensive line is going to have to be replaced with the Browns. That's coming up in just a few moments. Want to get to this piece of audio. This is from College Game Day podcast. And you're like, oh, what's the big deal, right? Craziness, by the way. Of course, I'm a BG alum. Bowling Green State University. We're good at football every few years, like really good, like MAC championship good. The MAC conference added a new team from Sacramento. They're going to play football. So that's going to be something. It's going to be nuts. But I heard this point again from the College Game Day podcast. You know, the SEC, in terms of star power, in terms of brands, the SEC, in my opinion, is pretty well spread out. That's why the SEC, in terms of viewership, has been successful because, you know, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, you know, Oklahoma, Texas, like there are star brands across the board in the SEC. The Big Ten is extremely top heavy in terms of star brands. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. Indiana's a fun story. Indiana's in that conversation. I will include Indiana, but for a long time, Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State versus everybody else. So would you consider those three teams? I'll lump in USC as well, just because I grew up, you know, Reggie Bush, my childhood, that kind of thing. But with those three teams, should they just consider packing up and forming their own conference, doing their own thing, having their own schedule arrangements, and leaving the rest of the Big Ten to the dust? Is that a smart idea? Take a look at this audio from the College Game Day podcast.
We got Ohio State, we got Penn State, and we got Michigan. And we put you three of you together and say, look, why are you floating the rest of these guys? Because if we had your football rights for your three schools and you all play each other, and maybe we bring in USC or Oregon, or maybe we get a little scheduling deal with Notre Dame. We have 5 or 6 every week. We have a big time game. And then you go out and schedule everything else as kind of an independent. You're not independent, but you're not. I've heard estimates that Ohio State-Michigan game alone is worth $200 million in terms of media rights, sponsorship, all the stuff. That's $100 million for each school. That's more than they make in the entire Big Ten. The Big Ten pays them like $78 million. If you had this one game as independents or in a little group, and then we throw in the Ohio State-Penn State game and the Michigan-Penn State game, and maybe we add a couple of these others, and then you take all your other, you go play in the MAC for your other leagues or whatever you want to schedule out. And all of a sudden Ohio State's making a couple $100 million in media. All these schools are going from 78 million in media to, I don't know, 150, 200.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. And for years, for generations, there's been an honor system. Really go all the way back to the Jim Tressel days, where Ohio State only recruited regionally. Jim Tressel started to win because he recruited in Northeast Ohio, created that Glenville pipeline, where John Cooper avoided Northeast Ohio for a lot of years. That's when Jim Tressel started to win. Urban Meyer elevated that. Urban Meyer brought the SEC mindset and recruited nationally. What is it to say now that Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC, and I'll throw in Oregon because they have that Nike pipeline and they're good at football, but the Nike pipeline in particular, and Notre Dame, and you just do a schedule arrangement. Heck, like was mentioned, the rest of the teams you can schedule could be from the MAC. I'll tell you what. Let me ask you this. What would Fox Sports choose? The same Fox Sports that'll put all your favorite games in big noon kickoff? Ohio State, Michigan, big noon Saturday. Ohio State versus Penn State, big noon Saturday. Ohio State versus ITT Tech, big noon Saturday. I mean, Fox Sports will pick that. Pick Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC game of the week, and then leave CBS and NBC with the rest of the Big Ten scraps. That's how uneven the conferences are. Now, obviously, barring something crazy, which this is college athletics, anything goes, anything can happen. The chances of this happening is pretty slim, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible. What's there to say that Ohio State and Michigan, if they didn't step out, that their ADs wouldn't have equal power in determining the college football playoff structure? What's there to say that, and we're just talking football only, what's there to say? I mean, we talk about it all the time. Eli and I and Robert Zicki and all of our programming and Inside Edge Prime Time, all of our shows, we always talk about how college football is basically now semi-pro. It's basically NFL amateurs. It's basically AAU. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC, Oregon, Notre Dame. Take it all the way. Why not? Take it all the way. You want scheduling freedom? You want to expand your recruiting base? You don't want to just limit yourselves to the Midwest? But, hey, maybe you can go down south and schedule a game against Florida or Florida State. Maybe you can go to, the Midwest, face Notre Dame, face Texas, face some of those other teams in a non-conference type of situation. Every football game that Ohio State would be in would draw. Now, here's the other thing you got to ask yourself at that point. Well, if you go that route, you're essentially saying the regular season is more important than the postseason. That's what you're saying. You're essentially saying our product, yeah, we can have postseason stuff and we win a few games, fine. And honestly, and if you get to a 2014 playoff, and let me just say this, and we'll cover this next week on Midnight Run. They're not stopping at 24. Be ready for 32 with the college football playoff. Be ready for 32. If 12's not good enough, 16's not good enough, 24's not good enough, we're already talking about all the top 8, the bye teams have a disadvantage from not playing. If we're already at that point, just go to all 32. And if we're eliminating conference championships, then what's the point of being in a conference? Why not just buy your way into a championship or buy your way into a playoff? But this would make Ohio State, Michigan, and those other schools that we talked about, they would essentially technically be independent. If it's only 5 or 6 schools, they wouldn't qualify to be a bowl eligible conference or a playoff conference. So they will all operate as independents, basically, but have a scheduling arrangement. On a much, 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 much smaller scale, that's happening here locally with high school football. The Lake Erie League here in high school sports. If you're here in Cleveland, those are, Bedford and Maple Heights and Shaw and Cleveland Heights and a ton of other teams. The LEL in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, huge with basketball and was huge in football. But teams, there was different visions, and 5 of the LEL teams were left in the dust. What was it? Shaw, Maple, Garfield, Bedford, Warrensville, left in the dust. And now they formed their own football conference. But it's a smaller conference. And by the way, the new conference, which I believe starts either this fall or fall of 2027, the 16 is Youngstown High School. Yeah, Youngstown High School. Be kind of the same deal here. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC, Notre Dame, Oregon. Not big enough for a conference, but I don't think Fox Sports would have any issue spending more money to broadcast their games than the Big Ten. All right. Glad you guys are with us here for Midnight Run. We're here with you for another minute or so, couple of minutes. Eli's been generous enough to be my producer, so we're going to end on time. Plus, I woke up this morning with a sore throat. What the hell? Did you see the weather forecast, by the way? Oh, I'm spoiling it. It's time for Dear Diary. We're going to get like a music bed or something for this. I don't have anything appropriate for this, but Dear Diary. Shout out to my barbershop. I stole this idea from them, but it was something like this. Dear Diary, I'm logging off of TikTok now. I'm telling them to follow them on @InsideEdgeNet. Okay, I'm kidding. All right, here we go. Dear Diary. Thank you, Wyatt Teller. Thank you for your years of service with the Cleveland Browns. Thank you to the entire offensive line for the Cleveland Browns, who since the Baker Mayfield days have been one of our strong suits of the team. I'm sorry that our team couldn't build a consistent winner around one of the more expensive offensive lines in the NFL. That is not a shot at any of you guys, because all of you guys worked hard. All of you guys were elite. All of you guys were great for the city of Cleveland. But unfortunately, even with providing the resources, the foundation, the structure that was you guys, the offensive line, while you guys evolved, our team did not. Several quarterbacks, several disappointing receivers later, several different backfields later, Father Time has caught up to all of us, all of you. And we wish you well in your future endeavors. Thank you to Wyatt Teller. Thank you to Joe Bitonio. Thank you to the entire offensive line for the Cleveland Browns. We'll get like a little music bed or something underneath there in the future. But that's the first edition of Dear Diary. According to John Sable of Fox 8, this is unconfirmed. He did the research on Twitter. The Cleveland Browns could be the first NFL team since 1970 that had to replace all 5 of their offensive line starters. Eli, let me bring you back in here to close this thing out.
Yeah.
A little worried about that. A little bit of concern when you hear that.
Yeah, it reminds me of when they got rid of the line that had Joe Thomas, Mitchell Schwartz, those guys, pretty much gutted the entire offensive line after the Thomas injury and everything. I mean, just wasn't good. So not exciting if you're Shedeur Sanders or any of the quarterbacks stepping back there. If you're the running backs or the receivers hoping to get the ball, the Browns have a lot to do with this offensive line. Everybody keeps talking about receiver, and I keep talking about receiver, but I think as more and more of this news keeps breaking, and Wyatt Teller shocking the world kind of today, really being like the only guy we could consider maybe coming back to Cleveland, and being the linchpin in this offensive line. Well, now we don't have that. So now the Browns got to figure it out through free agency and through the draft. And I keep kind of echoing recently my primetime co-host Chad Bryan's statement where this is going to be another year of figuring out what to do for the following year, and we're going to figure out. But I don't know if they're giving anybody a fair shake back there with this line. With whatever's left right now, not good.
Am I out of pocket in saying that we should almost guarantee that the Browns going to trade back in the draft?
I don't think you're out of pocket for that, because I think if they have Caleb Downs or Arvell Reese fall in their lap, especially Caleb Downs, I know Arvell Reese has been talked about, but I think Caleb Downs is an undeniable prospect. Yeah, there's a lot of teams that will give up multiple firsts. The first they have and another one, and I've seen I think it was Dallas where they're talking about maybe trading back down with Dallas potentially. I know that's just speculation here nor there, but yeah, it could be interesting. They could trade for strengthening the line, I guess, and it's never anybody's favorite draft. Nobody's ever going to call, when we get the phone lines ringing here on Inside Edge Network, but nobody's going to call up here eventually and be like, hey, I remember that draft where they had 3 offensive studs on the line. But it's those drafts that get you into a position where you can at least make a shot at a window. And for the Browns, they had a shot at a window. You brought up the names Baker. They had Miles and still have Miles on the defensive end, and Jarvis Landry and all these guys, AA, and it fell short of everything they expected and what these guys expected, and with offensive linemen. And then I'll disappear and let you say goodbye to everybody. But with offensive linemen, you have one shot at this. Really, you have one real strong stint, usually with a team. 8 to 9 years, and if that don't work, then that's it. You might get to go on another team and win. You've seen Andrew Whitworth go to the Rams, but it's very rare, very rare.
Yeah, that's tough. Thanks, Eli. And that's going to be tough. It's going to be extremely tough for the Cleveland Browns. Again, this is unprecedented. Since according to John Sable, he did the research. Since 1970, replacing an entire offensive line. I cannot stress enough how dire this situation is for the Cleveland Browns, because it would be nice to go into an offseason and just say, hey, let's draft a wide receiver. Let's get our number 1 receiver, and let's be off to the races. You got to rebuild from scratch. And Todd Monken, who is obviously offensive background, how's that going to materialize? We'll have to wait and see. And the other thing too, and like I said, 2026, obviously big year. 2027 is a huge year for a lot of people, a lot of fans. And I mentioned this on Main Event. A lot of teams their head coaches are on the hot seat. It ain't fair, but there is so much talent in 2027. They got to land on those foundational pieces in 2026. All right. Our first show is in the books. I want to thank Eli. I want to thank all of you. Again, we're going to be on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights at midnight. shortly after Inside Edge prime time midnight run. It's going to be a 1 hour sprint to the finish line to conclude your day. But we got a lot of stories. Every day there's new stories to dive into. It won't just be sports exclusive either. I got thoughts on America's Next Top Model. I got thoughts on Love is Blind and a couple other things going on too. So it won't just be sports exclusive, but we'll have all the latest news and stuff and your comments as well. Again, follow me. You see my handle at Anthony Alford 92. And of course, like and subscribe to the Inside Edge Network. I've been seeing that at the bottom. You got the QR code there as well. It takes you to the YouTube page, all of our live shows, all of our shorts. It's all there. For Eli Moon, for our entire crew, Double A Anthony Alford signing off. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you when I see you. See you.